The Complete Herbal by Nicholas Culpeper is often referred to as the Bible of herbal therapy, guiding generations of our ancestors in the natural art of healing. We've selected the 1850 version, untouched by modern pharmaceutical influences, to preserve its pure wisdom. Recognizing that the language can be a barrier, we've simplified the text to make it more accessible for today's students and curious seekers of knowledge. Get ready to unlock centuries of healing knowledge that still holds power today. This recording is a production of Medical Arts for the purpose of research, study, and discussion. AMARA DULCIS. Considering diverse shires in this nation give diverse names to one and the same herb. The common name which it bears in one county is not known in another. I shall take the pains to set down all the names that I know of each herb. Pardon me for setting that name first, which is most common to myself. Besides AMARA DULCIS, some call it mortal, others bittersweet, some woody nightshade, and others felonwort. It grows up with woody stalks even to a man's height, and sometimes higher. The leaves fall off at the approach of winter and spring out of the same stalk at springtime. The branch is compassed about with a whitish bark and has a pith in the middle of it. The main branch branches itself into many small ones with claspers, laying hold on what is next to them as vines do. It bears many leaves. They grow in no order at all, at least in no regular order. The leaves are longish, though somewhat broad and pointed at the ends. Many of them have two little leaves growing at the end of their footstalk. Some have but one and some none. The leaves are of a pale green color. The flowers are of a purple color or of a perfect blue, like violets, and they stand many of them together in knots. The berries are green at first, but when they are ripe, they are very red. If you taste them, you shall find them just as the crabs, which we in Sussex call bittersweet, that is sweet at first and bitter afterwards. They grow commonly almost throughout England, especially in moist and shady places. The leaves shoot out about the latter end of March if the temperature of the air be ordinary. It flowers in July, and the seeds are ripe soon after, usually in the next month. It is under the planet Mercury, and a notable herb of his also, if it be rightly gathered under his influence. It is excellently good to remove witchcraft both in men and beasts, as also all sudden diseases whatsoever. Being tied round about the neck is one of the most admirable remedies for vertigo or dizziness in the head. And that is the reason, as Tragus says, the people in Germany commonly hang it about their cattle's necks when they fear any such evil has befallen them. Country people commonly take the berries of it and, having bruised them, apply them to felons, and thereby soon rid their fingers of such troublesome guests. We have now shown you the external use of the herb. We shall speak a word or two of the internal and so conclude. Take notice, it is a mercurial herb and therefore of very subtle parts, as indeed all mercurial plants are. Therefore take a pound of the wood and leaves together. Bruise the wood, which you may easily do, for it is not so hard as oak. Then put it in a pot and add 3 pints of white wine. Put on the pot lid and shut it close. Let it infuse hot over a gentle fire 12 hours. Then strain it out. So you have a most excellent drink to open obstructions of the liver and spleen, to help difficulty of breath, bruises and falls, and congealed blood in any part of the body. It helps the yellow jaundice, the dropsy, and black jaundice, and to cleanse women newly brought to bed. You may drink 1/4 of a pint of the infusion every morning. It purges the body very gently, and not harshly as some hold. And when you find good by this, remember me. Those that think the use of these medicines is too brief, it is only for the brevity of the book. Let them read those books of mine, of the last edition, namely Riverius, Veslingus, Riolanus, Johnson, Senertus, and Physic for the Poor. All Heal. All Heal is called Hercules's All Heal and Hercules's Woundwort, because it is supposed that Hercules learned the herb and its virtues from Chiron when he learned physics from him. Some call it Panay, and others Opopane wort. Its root is long, thick, and exceedingly full of juice, with a hot and biting taste. The leaves are great and large, winged almost like ash tree leaves, but somewhat hairy. Each leaf consists of 5 or 6 pairs of such wings, set one against the other upon footstalks, broad below but narrow towards the end. One of the leaves is a little deeper at the bottom than the others, of a fair yellowish fresh green color. They are of a bitterish taste when chewed in the mouth. From among these rises a stalk, green in color, round in form, great and strong in magnitude, 5 or 6 feet in altitude, with many joints and some leaves thereat. Towards the top come forth umbels of small yellow flowers, after which pass away whitish, yellow, short, flat seeds, also bitter in taste. Having given you a description of the herb from bottom to top, let me tell you that there are other herbs called by this name. But because they are strangers in England, I give only the description of this, which is easily found in the gardens of various places. Although Gerard says that they flower from the beginning of May to the end of December, experience teaches those who keep it in their gardens that it does not flower until the latter end of the summer and sheds its seeds shortly after. It is under the dominion of Mars, hot, biting, and choleric. It remedies the evils Mars inflicts upon the body of man by sympathy, much like how viper's flesh attracts poison and the lodestone attracts iron. It kills worms, helps with gout, cramps, and convulsions, provokes urine, and aids all joint aches. It helps all cold griefs of the head, vertigo, falling sickness, lethargy, wind colic, obstructions of the liver and spleen, and stones in the kidneys and bladder. It provokes the terms and expels the dead birth. It is excellently good for the griefs of the sinews, itch, stones, toothache, the biting of mad dogs and venomous beasts, and purges choler very gently. ALKANET. Besides the common name, it is called orkanet, Spanish bugloss, and by apothecaries encusa. Of the many sorts of this herb, there is but one known to grow commonly in this nation. Take this description. It has a great and thick root of a reddish color. The leaves are long, narrow, and hairy, green like the leaves of bugloss, and lie very thick upon the ground. The stalks rise up compassed round about, thick with leaves that are less and narrower than the former. They are tender and slender. The flowers are hollow, small, and of a reddish color. It grows in Kent, near Rochester, and in many places in the West Country, both in Devonshire and Cornwall. They flower in July and the beginning of August, and the seed is ripe soon after. However, the root is in its prime, like carrots and parsnips, before the herb runs up to stalk. It is an herb under the dominion of Venus, and indeed one of her darlings, though somewhat hard to come by. It helps old ulcers, hot inflammations, burnings by common fire, and St. Anthony's fire by antipathy to Mars. For these uses, your best way is to make it into an ointment. Additionally, if you make a vinegar of it, as you make vinegar of roses, it helps with morphew and leprosy. If you apply the herb to privities, it draws forth the dead child. It helps yellow jaundice, the spleen, and gravel in the kidneys. Dioscorides says it helps those who are bitten by a venomous beast, whether it be taken inwardly or applied to the wound. Nay, he says further, if anyone who has newly eaten it does but spit into the mouth of a serpent, the serpent instantly dies. It stops the flux of the belly, kills worms, and helps the fits of the mother. Its decoction made in wine and drank strengthens the back and eases the pains thereof. It helps bruises and falls, and is as gallant a remedy to drive out the smallpox and measles as any is. An ointment made of it is excellent for green wounds, pricks, or thrusts. Adder's tongue or serpent's tongue. This herb has only one leaf, which grows with the stalk about a finger's length above the ground. It is flat and fresh green in color, broad like water plantain but smaller, without any rib. From the bottom of the leaf, on the inside, rises 1, sometimes 2 or 3 slender stalks. The upper half of these stalks is somewhat thicker and has small dents of yellowish-green color, resembling the tongue of an adder serpent, although this herb is as beneficial as it is formidable. The roots remain throughout the year. It grows in moist meadows and similar places. It can be found in May or April, as it quickly perishes with a little heat. This herb is governed by the moon and Cancer. If the weakness of the retentive faculty is caused by an adverse influence of Saturn in any part of the body governed by the moon or Cancer, this herb can remedy it through sympathy. It is effective against diseases in the body influenced by Saturn, acting through antipathy. The herb is temperate in respect to heat, but dry in the 2nd degree. The juice of the leaves, taken with the distilled water of horsetail, is an excellent remedy for all types of wounds in the breast, bowels, or other parts of the body. It is particularly beneficial for those who suffer from casting, vomiting, or bleeding from the mouth, nose, or downwards. The juice, taken in distilled water of oaken buds, is also useful for women experiencing excessive flow, or the whites, leukorrhea. It helps soothe sore eyes. When the leaves are infused or boiled in oil, especially omphacene or unripe olive oil, set in the sun for 4 days, or simply boiled in the oil, a superb green balsam is made. This balsam can treat not only fresh and green wounds, but also old, stubborn ulcers, particularly if a little clear turpentine is dissolved in it. It also helps to reduce and refresh inflammations caused by wounds or injuries. For details on what parts of the body are under the influence of each planet and sign, as well as my astrological judgments on diseases and internal processes of nature, refer to my ephemeris for the year 1651. This work will clear away the confusion of many authors and reveal rational truths for the discerning reader. Finally, to help you avoid wasting paper and to make your study of herbalism more affordable, I've included at the end of the book methods for preserving all herbs in juices, conserves, oils, ointments, plasters, electuaries, pills, or troches. AGRIMONY. This has diverse long leaves, some greater, some smaller, set upon a stalk. All of them are dented about the edges, green above and grayish underneath, and a little hairy withal. Among them arises usually but one strong, round, hairy, brown stalk, 2 or 3 feet high, with smaller leaves set here and there upon it. At the top thereof grow many small yellow flowers, one above another in long spikes, after which come rough heads of seed hanging downwards, which will cleave to and stick upon garments or anything that shall rub against them. The knot is black, long, and somewhat woody, abiding many years and shooting afresh every spring. The root, though small, has a reasonably good scent. It grows upon banks, near the sides of hedges. It flowers in July and August. The seed is ripe shortly after. It is an herb under Jupiter and the sign Cancer. It strengthens those parts under the planet and sign and removes diseases in them by sympathy, and those under Saturn, Mars, and Mercury by antipathy, if they happen in any part of the body governed by Jupiter or under the signs Cancer, Sagittarius, or Pisces. Therefore, it must be good for the gout, either used outwardly in oil or ointment, or inwardly in an electuary, syrup, or concerted juice, for which see the latter end of this book. It is of a cleansing and cutting faculty, without any manifest heat, moderately drying and binding. It opens and cleanses the liver, helps the jaundice, and is very beneficial to the bowels, healing all inward wounds, bruises, hurts, and other distempers. The decoction of the herb made with wine and drank is good against the biting and stinging of serpents, and helps them that make foul, troubled, or bloody water. This herb also helps the colic, cleanses the breast, and rids away the cough. A draught of the decoction taken warm before the fit first removes, and in time rids away the tertian or quartan eggs. The leaves and seeds taken in wine stay the bloody flux. Outwardly applied, being stamped with old swine's grease, it helps old sores, cancers, and inveterate ulcers, and draws forth thorns and splinters of wood, nails, or any other such things gotten in the flesh. It helps to strengthen the members that are out of joint. Being bruised and applied, or the juice dropped in it, helps foul and imposthumed ears. The distilled water of the herb is good for all the said purposes, either inward or outward, but a great deal weaker. It is a most admirable remedy for those whose livers are annoyed either by heat or cold. The liver is the former of blood, and blood the nourisher of the body, and agrimony a strengthener of the liver. I cannot stand to give you a reason in every herb why it cures such diseases, but if you please to pursue my judgment in the herb wormwood, you shall find them there, and it will be well worth your while to consider it in every herb. You shall find them true throughout the book. Water agrimony. Water agrimony is called in some countries water hemp, bastard agrimony, eupatorium, and hepatorium, because it strengthens the liver. The root continues a long time, having many long slender strings. The stalk grows up about 2 feet high, sometimes higher. They are of a dark purple color. The branches are many, growing at distances from one another. One grows from one side of the stalk, the other from the opposite point. The leaves are fringed and much indented at the edges. The flowers grow at the top of the branches, of a brown-yellow color, spotted with black spots, having a substance within the midst of them like that of a daisy. If you rub them between your fingers, they smell like rosin or cedar when burnt. The seeds are long and easily stick to any woolen thing they touch. It does not thrive in heat, and is therefore not frequently found in the southern parts of England, as in the northern regions, where it grows more often. You may look for it in cold grounds, by ponds and ditches' sides, and also by running waters. Sometimes you shall find it growing in the midst of waters. They all flower in July or August, and the seed is ripe shortly after. It is a plant of Jupiter, as well as the other AGRIMONY, only this belongs to the celestial sign Cancer. It heals and dries, cuts and cleanses thick and tough humors of the breast. For this reason, I hold it inferior to but few herbs that grow. It helps the cachexia, or evil disposition of the body, dropsy, and yellow jaundice. It opens obstructions of the liver and mollifies the hardness of the spleen when applied outwardly. It breaks imposthumes away inwardly. It is an excellent remedy for the third-day ague. It provokes urine in the terms, kills worms, and cleanses the body of sharp humors, which are the cause of itch and scabs. When the herb is burnt, the smoke thereof drives away flies, wasps, and similar pests. It strengthens the lungs exceedingly. Country people give it to their cattle when they are troubled with a cough or are broken-winded. Allahoof or groundavy. Several counties give it different names, so that there is scarcely any herb growing of that bigness that has got so many. It is called cat's foot, ground ivy, gill go by ground, gill creep by ground, turnhoof, haymaids, and alehoof. This well-known herb lies, spreads, and creeps upon the ground. It shoots forth roots at the corners of tender jointed stalks, set with 2 round leaves at every joint. The leaves are somewhat hairy, crumpled, and unevenly dented about the edges with round dents. At the joints, likewise, with the leaves towards the end of the branches, hollow, long flowers come forth. These flowers are of a bluish-purple color, with small white spots upon the lips that hang down. The root is small with strings. It is commonly found under hedges and on the sides of ditches, under houses, in shadowed lanes, and other waste grounds in almost every part of this land. They flower somewhat early and abide a great while. The leaves remain green until winter and sometimes persist, unless the winter is very sharp and cold. It is an herb of Venus, and therefore cures the diseases she causes by sympathy, and those of Mars by antipathy. You may usually find it all year long, except when the year is extremely frosty. It is quick, sharp, and bitter in taste, and is thereby found to be hot and dry. It is a singular herb for all inward wounds, exulcerated lungs, or other parts, either by itself or boiled with other similar herbs. When drank, it eases all griping pains, windy and choleric humors in the stomach, spleen, or belly in a short time. It helps yellow jaundice by opening the stoppings of the gall and liver, and melancholy by opening the stoppings of the spleen. It expels venom or poison and also the plague. It provokes urine and women's courses. The decoction of it in wine, when drank for some time together, provides ease to those troubled with sciatica or hip gout, as well as gout in hands, knees, or feet. If you add some honey and a little burnt alum to the decoction, it is excellently good to gargle any sore mouth or throat, and to wash the sores and ulcers in the privy parts of a man or woman. It speedily helps green wounds when bruised and bound thereto. The juice of it boiled with a little honey and verdigris wonderfully cleanses fistulas, ulcers, and stops the spreading or eating of cancers and ulcers. It helps itch, scabs, wheals, and other breakings out in any part of the body. The juice of celandine, field daisies, and ground ivy clarified, and a little fine sugar dissolved therein and dropped into the eyes, is a sovereign remedy for all pains, redness, and watering of them, as well as for the pin and web, skins, and films growing over the sight. It helps beasts as well as men. The juice dropped into the ears wonderfully helps the noise and ringing of them, and helps hearing that is decayed. It is good to tune up with new drink, for it will clarify it in a night, making it fit to be drank the next morning. Or if any drink is thick with removing or any other accident, it will do the same in a few hours. Alexander. Alexander is called alisander, horse parsley, wild parsley, and the black pot herb. The seed of it is that which is usually sold in apothecaries' shops for Macedonian parsley seed. It is usually sown in all the gardens in Europe and so well known that it needs no further description. It flowers in June and July. The seed is ripe in August. It is an herb of Jupiter and therefore friendly to nature. It warms a cold stomach and opens a stoppage of the liver and spleen. It is good to move women's courses, to expel the afterbirth, to break wind, to provoke urine, and helps the strangury. These things the seeds will do likewise. If either of them be boiled in wine, or being bruised and taken in wine, it is also effectual against the biting of serpents. And you know what Alexander pottage is good for, that you may no longer eat it out of ignorance, but out of knowledge. The black alder tree. This tree seldom grows to any great bigness, but for the most part abides like a hedge bush or a tree spreading its branches. The wood of the body is white and has a dark red core or heart. The outward bark is of a blackish color with many whitish spots within. But the inner bark next to the wood is yellow, which, when chewed, will turn the spittle near into a saffron color. The leaves are somewhat like those of an ordinary alder tree, or the female cornet, or dogberry tree, called in Sussex dogwood, but blacker and not so long. The flowers are white, coming forth with the leaves at the joints, which turn into small round berries, first green, afterwards red, but blackish when thoroughly ripe. These berries are divided into two parts, each containing two small, round, and flat seeds. The root does not run deep into the ground, but spreads rather under the upper crust of the earth. This tree or shrub may be found plentifully in St. John's Wood by Hornsey and the woods upon Hampstead Heath, as also a wood called the Old Park in Barcombe, Essex, near the brook's sides. It flowers in May, and the berries are ripe in September. It is a tree of Venus, and perhaps under the celestial sign Cancer. The inner yellow bark purges downwards both choler and phlegm, and the watery humors of those who have dropsy, and strengthens the inward parts again by binding. If the bark is boiled with AGRIMONY, wormwood, dodder, hops, some fennel, smallage, endive, and succory roots, and a reasonable draught taken every morning for some time together, it is very effectual against jaundice, dropsy, and the evil disposition of the body, especially if some suitable purging medicines have been taken before to void the grosser excrements. It purges and strengthens the liver and spleen, cleansing them from such evil humors and hardness as they are afflicted with. It is to be understood that these things are performed by the dried bark, for the fresh green bark taken inwardly provokes strong vomitings, pains in the stomach, and gripings in the belly. Yet, if the decoction is allowed to stand and settle for 2 or 3 days until the yellow color changes to black, it will not work as strongly as before, but will strengthen the stomach and procure an appetite for meat. The outward bark, on the contrary, binds the body and is helpful for all lasses and fluxes thereof, but this also must be dried first, whereby it will work better. The inner bark boiled in vinegar is an approved remedy to kill lice, to cure the itch, and take away scabs by drying them up in a short time. It is singularly good to wash the teeth, to take away the pains, to fasten those that are loose, to cleanse them, and to keep them sound. The leaves are good fodder for kine to make them give more milk. If in the springtime you use the herbs previously mentioned, take but a handful of each of them, and to them add a handful of elder buds. Having bruised them all, boil them in a gallon of ordinary beer when it is new, and having boiled them for half an hour, add to this 3 more gallons, and let them work together. Drink a draught of it every morning, half a pint or thereabouts. It is an excellent purge for the spring, to consume the phlegmatic quality the winter has left behind, and withal to keep your body in health, and consume those evil humors which the heat of summer will readily stir up. Esteem it as a jewel. The common alder tree. The common alder tree. This grows to a reasonable height and spreads much as the place allows. It is so generally known to country people that I conceive it needless to tell that which is no news. It delights to grow in moist woods and watery places. It flowers in April or May and yields ripe seed in September. It is a tree under the dominion of Venus, and perhaps under the celestial sign Cancer or Pisces. Therefore, the decoction or distilled water of the leaves is excellent against burnings and inflammations, whether with wounds or without, to bathe the place grieved with, and especially for that inflammation in the breast. which the vulgar call an egg. If you cannot get the leaves, as in winter it is impossible, make use of the bark in the same manner. The leaves and bark of the alder tree are cooling, drying, and binding. The fresh leaves laid upon swellings dissolve them and stay the inflammation. The leaves put under the bare feet of those galled with traveling are a great refreshment to them. The said leaves, gathered while the morning dew is on them and brought into a chamber troubled with fleas, will gather them thereunto, which being suddenly cast out, will rid the chamber of those troublesome bedfellows. Angelica. Several counties give it different names, so that there is scarcely any herb growing of that bigness that has got so many. It is called cat's foot, ground ivy, gill go by ground, gill creep by ground, turn hoof, haymaids, and alehoof. Government and virtues. It is an herb of the sun in Leo. Let it be gathered when he is there, with the moon applying to his good aspect. Let it be gathered either in his hour or in the hour of Jupiter. Let's all be angular. Observe the same in gathering the herbs of other planets, and you may happen to do wonders. In all epidemical diseases caused by Saturn, that is as good a preservative as grows. It resists poison by defending and comforting the heart, blood, and spirits. It doth the same against the plague and all epidemical diseases, if the root be taken in powder to the weight of half a dram at a time, with some good treacle in carduous water, and the party thereupon laid to sweat in his bed. If treacle be not to be had, take it alone in carduous or Angelica water. The stalks or roots, candied and eaten fasting, are good preservatives in time of infection, and at other times to warm and comfort a cold stomach. The root also steeped in vinegar, and a little of that vinegar taken sometimes fasting, and the root smelled unto, is good for the same purpose. A water distilled from the root simply as steeped in wine and distilled in a glass is much more effectual than the water of the leaves. This water, drank 2 or 3 spoonfuls at a time, easeth all pains and torments coming of cold and wind, so that the body be not bound. Taken with some of the root in powder at the beginning, helpeth the pleurisy, as also all other diseases of the lungs and breast, such as coughs, physic, and shortness of breath. A syrup of the stalks does the same. It helps pains of the colic, the strangury, and stoppage of the urine, procureth women's courses, and expelleth the afterbirth. It openeth the stoppings of the liver and spleen, and briefly easeth and discusseth all windiness and inward swellings. The decoction drank before the fit of an egg, that they may sweat if possible before the fit comes, will, in 2 or 3 times taking, rid it quite away. It helps digestion, and is a remedy for a surfeit. The juice or the water, being dropped into the eyes or ears, helps dimness of sight and deafness. The juice put into the hollow teeth easeth their pains. The root in powder, made up into a plaster with a little pitch, and laid on the biting of mad dogs or any other venomous creature, doth wonderfully help. The juice or the waters dropped, or tent wet therein and put into filthy dead ulcers, or the powder of the root, if in want of either, doth cleanse and cause them to heal quickly by covering the naked bones with flesh. The distilled water applied to places pained with the gout or sciatica doth give a great deal of ease. The wild Angelica is not so effectual as the garden, although it may be safely used to all the purposes aforesaid. Amaranthus. Besides its common name, by which it is best known by the florists of our days, it is called flower gentle, flower velour floramore, and velvet flower. It being a garden flower and well known to everyone that keeps it, I might forbear the description. Yet notwithstanding, because some desire it, I shall give it. It runs up with a stalk a cubit high, streaked and somewhat reddish towards the root, but very smooth. It is divided towards the top with small branches, among which stand long, broad leaves of a reddish-green color, slippery. The flowers are not properly flowers, but tufts, very beautiful to behold, but of no smell, of reddish color. If you bruise them, they yield juice of the same color. Being gathered, they keep their beauty a long time. The seed is of a shining black color. They continue in flower from August till the time the frost nips them. It is under the dominion of Saturn and is an excellent qualifier of the unruly actions and passions of Venus, though Mars also should join with her. The flowers dried and beaten into powder stop the terms in women, and so do almost all other red things. By the icon or image of every herb, the ancients at first found out their virtues. Modern writers laugh at them for it, but I wonder in my heart how the virtues of herbs came at first to be known, if not by their signatures. The moderns have them from the writings of the ancients. The ancients had no writings to have them from. But to proceed, the flowers stop all fluxes of blood, whether in man or woman, bleeding either at the nose or wound. There is also a sort of Amaranthus that bears a white flower, which stops the whites in women and the running of the rains in men, and is a most gallant anti-venereal and a singular remedy for the French pox. Anemone. Called also windflower because they say the flowers never open but when the wind blows. Pliny is my author. If it be not so, blame him. The seed also, if it bears any at all, flies away with the wind. They are sown usually in the gardens of the curious and flower in the springtime. As for description, I shall pass it, being well known to all those that sow them. It is under the dominion of Mars, being supposed to be a kind of crow-foot. The leaves provoke the terms mightily, being boiled, and the decoction drank. The body being bathed with the decoction of them cures the leprosy. The leaves being stamped and the juice snuffed up in the nose purges the head mightily. So does the root, being chewed in the mouth, for it procures much spitting and brings away many watery and phlegmatic humors, and is therefore excellent for the lethargy. And when all is done, let physicians prate what they please. All the pills in the dispensatory purge not the head like hot things held in the mouth. Being made into an ointment, and the eyelids anointed with it, it helps inflammations of the eyes, whereby it is palpable that every stronger draws its weaker like. The same ointment is excellently good to cleanse malignant and corroding ulcers. Garden Arac. Called also Orac and Arage. It is cultivated for domestic uses. It is so commonly known to every housewife, it would be labor lost to describe it. It flowers and seeds from June to the end of August. It is under the government of the moon, in quality cold and moist like unto her. It softens and loosens the body of man when eaten and fortifies the expulsive faculty in him. The herb, whether it be bruised and applied to the throat or boiled and in like manner applied, it matters not much. It is excellently good for swellings in the throat. The best way, I suppose, is to boil it and apply the herb outwardly. The decoction of it, besides, is an excellent remedy for the yellow jaundice. Arac, wild and stinking. It is called also vulvaria, from that part of the body upon which the operation is most. Also, dog's arac, goat's arac, and stinking motherwort. This has small and almost round leaves, yet a little pointed and without dent or cut, of a dusky mealy color, growing on the slender stalks and branches that spread on the ground. It has small flowers set with the leaves, and small seeds succeeding like the rest, perishing yearly and rising again with its own sowing. It smells like rotten fish or something worse. It grows usually upon dunghills. They flower in June and July, and their seed is ripe quickly after. Stinking arac is used as a remedy to women pained and almost strangled with the mother by smelling to it. But inwardly taken, there is no better remedy under the moon for that disease. I would be large in commendation of this herb were I but eloquent. It is an herb under the dominion of Venus and under the sign Scorpio. It is common almost upon every dunghill. The works of God are freely given to man. His medicines are common and cheap and easily found. I commend it as a universal medicine for the womb, and such a medicine as will easily, safely, and speedily cure any disease thereof, such as the fits of the mother, dislocation, or falling out thereof. It cools the womb when overheated. And let me tell you this, and I will tell you the truth. Heat of the womb is one of the greatest causes of hard labor in childbirth. It makes barren women fruitful. It cleans the womb if it be foul, and strengthens it exceedingly. It provokes the terms if they be stopped, and stops them if they flow immoderately. You can desire no good to your womb, but this herb will effect it. Therefore, if you love children, if you love health, if you love ease, keep a syrup always by you, made of the juice of this herb and sugar or honey, if it be to cleanse the womb. Let such as be rich keep it for their poor neighbors, and bestow it as freely as I bestow my studies upon them. Or else, let them look to answer it another day, when the Lord shall come to make inquisition for blood. Archangel. To put a description of that which is so well known to be growing almost in every garden, I suppose is altogether needless. Yet, for its virtue, it is of admirable use. In time of heathenism, when men had found out any excellent herb, they dedicated it to their gods. The bay tree to Apollo, the oak to Jupiter, the vine to Bacchus, and the poplar to Hercules. These idolaters, following as the patriarchs, dedicate them to their saints. As Our Lady's thistle to the Blessed Virgin, St. John's wort to St. John, and another wort to St. Peter. Our physicians must imitate like apes, though they cannot come off half so cleverly, for they blasphemously call fancies or heart's ease an herb of the Trinity, because it is of 3 colors, and a certain ointment, an ointment of the apostles, because it consists of 12 ingredients. Alas, I am sorry for their folly and grieved at their blasphemy. God send them wisdom for the rest of their age, for they have their share of ignorance already. Oh, why must ours be blasphemous because the heathens and infidels were idolatrous? Certainly they have read so much in old rusty authors that they have lost all their divinity. For unless it were amongst the ranters, I never read or heard of such blasphemy. The heathens and infidels were bad and ours worse. The idolaters give idolatrous names to herbs for their virtue's sake, not for their fair looks, and therefore some called this an herb of the Holy Ghost. Others, more moderate, called it Angelica because of its angelical virtues, and that name it retains still, and all nations follow it as near as their dialect will permit. It is an herb of the sun in Leo. Let it be gathered when he is there, with the moon applying to his good aspect. Let it be gathered either in his hour or in the hour of Jupiter. Let's all be angular. Observe the same in gathering the herbs of other planets, and you may happen to do wonders. In all epidemical diseases caused by Saturn, that is as good a preservative as grows. It resists poison by defending and comforting the heart, blood, and spirits. It doth the same against the plague and all epidemical diseases, if the root be taken in powder to the weight of half a dram at a time, with some good treacle in carduous water, and the party thereupon laid to sweat in his bed. If treacle be not to be had, take it alone in carduous or Angelica water. The stalks or roots, candied and eaten fasting, are good preservatives in time of infection, and at other times to warm and comfort a cold stomach. The root also steeped in vinegar, and a little of that vinegar taken sometimes fasting, and the root smelled unto, is good for the same purpose. A water distilled from the root simply as steeped in wine and distilled in a glass is much more effectual than the water of the leaves. This water, drank 2 or 3 spoonfuls at a time, easeth all pains and torments coming of cold and wind, so that the body be not bound. Taken with some of the root in powder at the beginning, helpeth the pleurisy, as also all other diseases of the lungs and breast, such as coughs, phthisis, and shortness of breath. A syrup of the stalks does the same. It helps pains of the colic, the strangury, and stoppage of the urine, procureth women's courses, and expelleth the afterbirth. It openeth the stoppings of the liver and spleen, and briefly easeth and discusseth all windiness and inward swellings. The decoction drank before the fit of an egg, that they may sweat if possible before the fit comes, will, in 2 or 3 times taking, rid it quite away. It helps digestion, and is a remedy for a surfeit. The juice or the water, being dropped into the eyes or ears, helps dimness of sight and deafness. The juice put into the hollow teeth easeth their pains. The root in powder, made up into a plaster with a little pitch, and laid on the biting of mad dogs or any other venomous creature, doth wonderfully help. The juice or the waters dropped or tent wet therein, and put into F. R-smart. It is called also water pepper or kohlrabi. The mild R-smart is called dead R-smart persicaria or peachwort, because the leaves are so like the leaves of a peach tree. It is also called plumbago. Description of the mild. This has broad leaves set at the great red joint of the stalks, with semicircular blackish marks on them, usually either bluish or whitish, with similar seeds following. The root is long with many strings, perishing yearly. This has no sharp taste, as another sort has, which is quick and biting, but rather sour like sorrel or a little drying or without taste. Place. It grows in watery places, ditches and the like, which for the most part are dry in summer. Time. It flowers in June and the seed is ripe in August. Government and virtues. As the virtue of both these is various, so is also their government. The hot and biting arsmart is under the dominion of Mars, but Saturn challenges the other, as appears by the leaden-colored spot he hath placed upon the leaf. It is of a cooling and drying quality and very effectual for putrefied ulcers in man or beast, to kill worms and cleanse the putrefied places. The juice thereof, dropped in or otherwise applied, consumes all colds and swellings, and dissolveth the congealed blood of bruises by strokes, falls, and more. A piece of the root or some of the seeds, bruised and held to an aching tooth, takes away the pain. The leaves, bruised and laid to the joint that has a felon thereon, take it away. The juice destroys worms in the ears when dropped into them. If the hot arsmart be strewn in a chamber, it will soon kill all the fleas. The herb or juice of the cold arsmart, put to a horse or other cattle's sores, will drive away the fly in the hottest time of summer. A good handful of the hot-biting arsmart put under a horse's saddle will make him travel the better, although he were half tired before. The mild arsmart is good against all imposthumes and inflammations at the beginning and to heal green wounds. All authors chop the virtues of both sorts of arsmart together, as men chop herbs for the pot when both of them are of contrary qualities. The hot arsmart grows not so high or tall as the mild doth, but has many leaves of the color of peach leaves, very seldom or never spotted. In other particulars, it is like the former, but may easily be known from it if you will, but break a leaf of it across your tongue. The hot will make your tongue smart, but the cold will not. If you see them both together, you may easily distinguish them because the mild hath far broader leaves. Asarabaca. Asarabaca appears like an evergreen, keeping its leaves all the winter, but putting forth new ones in the time of spring. It has many heads rising from the roots, from whence come many smooth leaves, each upon its foot stalks. These leaves are rounder and bigger than violet leaves, thicker also, and of a dark green shining color on the upper side and a pale yellow-green underneath. They are little or nothing dented about the edges. From among them rise small, round, hollow, brown-green husks on short stalks about an inch long, divided at the brims into 5 divisions, very like the cups or heads of the henbane seed, but smaller. These are all the flowers it carries, which are somewhat sweet when smelled, and when ripe, contain small, cornered, rough seeds, very like the kernels or stones of grapes or raisins. The roots are small and whitish, spreading divers ways in the ground, increasing into divers heads, but not running or creeping under the ground like some other creeping herbs. They are somewhat sweet in smell, resembling nardus, but more when dry than green, and have a sharp and not unpleasant taste. It grows frequently in gardens. They keep their leaves green all winter, but shoot forth new ones in the spring. With them come forth those heads or flowers which give ripe seed about midsummer or somewhat after. It is a plant under the dominion of Mars, and therefore inimical to nature. This herb, when drank, not only provokes vomiting, but purges downwards, and by urine purges both choler and phlegm. If you add some spikenard with the whey of goat's milk or honeyed water, it is made stronger and purges phlegm more manifestly than choler. Therefore it does much to help pains in the hips and other parts. Being boiled in whey, it wonderfully helps the obstructions of the liver and spleen, making it profitable for dropsy and jaundice. Steeped in wine and drank, it helps those continual agues that come from the plenty of stubborn humors. An oil made thereof by setting in the sun with some laudanum added provokes sweating when anointed on the ridge of the back, thereby driving away the shaking fits of the ague. It will not abide any long boiling, for it loses its chief strength thereby, nor much beating, for the finer powder provokes vomits and urine, and the coarser purgeth downwards. The common use of it is to take the juice of 5 or 7 leaves in a little drink to cause vomiting. The roots have the same virtue, though they do not operate as forcibly. They are very effectual against the biting of serpents, and are therefore put as an ingredient both into mithridate and Venice treacle. The leaves and roots, being boiled in lye and the head often washed therewith while warm, comfort the head and brain that are ill affected by taking cold and help the memory. I shall desire ignorant people to forbear the use of the leaves. The roots purge more gently and may prove beneficial to those who have cancers, old putrefied ulcers, or fistulas upon their bodies. Take a dram of them in powder in 1/4 of a pint of white wine in the morning. The truth is, I fancy purging and vomiting medicines as little as any man breathing doth, for they weaken nature, nor shall I ever advise them to be used unless upon urgent necessity. If a physician be nature's servant, it is his duty to strengthen his mistress as much as he can and weaken her as little as may be. Asparagus, sparagus, or sparage. The plant starts with brittle white and green scaly heads, which are easy to break when young. It then grows into long, slender green stalks, similar to an ordinary riding wand. These stalks vary in size depending on the growth of the roots. The stalks have branches of green leaves that are shorter and smaller than fennel. Small yellowish flowers appear at the joints, which turn into round berries. The berries are initially green, but turn a bright red when ripe, resembling beads or coral. Inside, they contain hard black seeds. The roots spread from a spongy head into long, thick, round strings, absorbing nourishment from the ground and increasing in size. Prickly asparagus or SPARAGUS. It grows usually in gardens, and some of it grows wild in Appleton Meadows in Gloucestershire, where the poor people gather the buds of young shoots and sell them cheaper than our garden asparagus is sold in London. For the most part, they flower and bear their berries late in the year or not at all, although they are housed in winter. They are both under the dominion of Jupiter. The young buds or branches boiled in ordinary broth make the belly soluble and open, and boiled in white wine provoke urine when stopped. They are good against strangry or difficulty of making water. They expel gravel and stone out of the kidneys and help pains in the reins. Boiled in white wine or vinegar, they are prevalent for those who have their arteries loosened or are troubled with hip gout or sciatica. The decoction of the roots boiled in wine and taken is good to clear the sight, and being held in the mouth eases the toothache. The garden asparagus nourisheth more than the wild, yet hath it the same effects in all the aforementioned diseases. The decoction of the root in white wine, and the back and belly bathed therewith, or kneeling or lying down in the same, or sitting therein as a bath, has been found effectual against pains of the reins and bladder, pains of the mother and colic, and generally against all pains that happen to the lower parts of the body. It is no less effectual against stiff and benumbed sinews, or those that are shrunk by cramps and convulsions, and helps the sciatica. Ash tree. This is so well known that time would be misspent in writing a description of it. Therefore, I shall only insist upon the virtues of it. Government and virtues. It is governed by the sun. The young tender tops with the leaves taken inwardly and some outwardly applied are singularly good against the bitings of vipers, adders, or any other venomous beast. The water distilled therefrom, being taken a small quantity every morning fasting, is a singular medicine for those subject to dropsy or to abate the greatness of those that are too gross or fat. The decoction of the leaves in white wine helps to break the stone and expel it and cures jaundice. The ashes of the bark of the ash made into lye, and those heads bathed therewith, which are leprous, scabby, or scald, are thereby cured. The kernels within the husks, commonly called ashen keys, prevail against stitches and pains in the sides, proceeding of wind, and voideth away the stone by provoking urine. I can justly accept against none of all this, save only the first, that ash tree tops and leaves are good against the bitings of serpents and vipers. I suppose this had its rise from Gerard or Pliny, both of whom hold that there is such an antipathy between an adder and an ash tree, that if an adder be encompassed round with ash tree leaves, she will sooner run through the fire than through the leaves. The contrary is the truth, as both my eyes are witnesses. The rest are virtues somewhat likely, only if it be in winter when you cannot get the leaves, you may safely use the bark instead of them. The keys you may easily keep all the year, gathering them when they are ripe. Avens, called also colewort, and herb bonnet. Ordinary avens. This has many long, rough, dark green, winged leaves rising from the root, each made of many leaves set on each side of the middle rib. The largest 3 grow at the end and are snipped or dented around the edges. The others are small pieces, sometimes 2 and sometimes 4, standing on each side of the middle rib underneath them. Among these rise up diverse rough or hairy stalks about 2 feet high, branching forth with leaves at every joint, not as long as those below, but almost as much cut in on the edges, some into 3 parts, some into more. On the tops of the branches stand small, pale yellow flowers consisting of 5 leaves, like the flowers of cinquefoil but larger. In the middle of these flowers stand a small green herb, which when the flower has fallen, grows to be round, made of many long greenish-purple seeds like grains that will stick upon your clothes. The root consists of many brownish strings or fibers, smelling somewhat like unto cloves, especially those which grow in higher, hotter, and drier grounds, and in free and clear air. They grow wild in many places under hedge sides and by pathways in fields, yet they rather delight to grow in shadowy than sunny places. They flower in May or June for the most part, and their seed is ripe in July at the latest. Government and virtues. It is governed by Jupiter, giving hopes of a wholesome, healthful herb. It is good for the diseases of the chest or breast, for pains and stitches in the side, and to expel crude and raw humors from the belly and stomach by its sweet savor and warming quality. It dissolves inward congealed blood caused by falls or bruises, and the spitting of blood if the roots, either green or dry, are boiled in wine and drank. It also cures all manner of inward and outward wounds if washed or bathed with it. The decoction, when drank, comforts the heart and strengthens the stomach and a cold brain, making it good in the spring times to open obstructions of the liver and helps the wind colic. It also helps those that have fluxes, are bursting, or have a rupture. It takes away spots or marks on the face when washed with it. The juice of the fresh root or powder of the dried root has the same effect as the decoction. The root in the springtime steeped in wine gives it a delicate savor and taste, and being drank fasting every morning comforts the heart and serves as a good preservative against the plague or any other poison. It helps indigestion, warms a cold stomach, and opens obstructions of the liver and spleen. It is very safe. You need have no dose prescribed, and it is very fit to be kept in everybody's house. BALM. This herb is so well known to be an inhabitant almost in every garden that I shall not need to write any description thereof. However, its virtues, which are many, may not be omitted. Government and virtues. It is an herb of Jupiter and under Cancer, and strengthens nature much in all its actions. Let a syrup made with the juice of it and sugar, as you shall be taught at the latter end of this book, be kept in every gentlewoman's house to relieve the weak stomachs and sick bodies of their poor sickly neighbors. Also the herb kept dry in the house, that with other convenient simples you may make into an electuary with honey, according as the disease is, you shall be taught at the latter end of my book. The Arabian physicians have extolled the virtues thereof to the skies, although the Greeks thought it not worth mentioning. Seraphio says it causes the mind and heart to become merry, revives the heart, faintings and swoonings, especially of those overtaken in sleep, and drives away all troublesome cares and thoughts out of the mind, arising from melancholy or black choler, which Avens also confirms. It is very good to help digestion, open obstructions of the brain, and has so much purging quality in it as to expel those melancholy vapors from the spirits and blood which are in the heart and arteries, although it cannot do so in other parts of the body. Dioscorides says that the leaves steeped in wine, and the wine drank, and the leaves externally applied, are remedies against the stings of a scorpion and the bitings of mad dogs. He commends the decoction thereof for women to bathe or sit in to procure their courses. It is good to wash aching teeth therewith, and profitable for those that have the bloody flux. The leaves also, with a little nitre taken in drink, are good against the surfeit of mushrooms, help the griping pains of the belly, and being made into an electuary, are good for those that cannot fetch their breath. Used with salt, it takes away wens, kernels, or hard swelling in the flesh or throat. It cleanses foul sores and eases pains of the gout. It is good for the liver and spleen. A tansy or caudle made with eggs and juice thereof, while it is young, putting in some sugar and rose water, is good for a woman in childbirth, when the afterbirth is not thoroughly voided, and for their faintings upon or in their sore travail. The herb bruised and boiled in a little wine and oil, and laid warm on a boil, will ripen it and break it. Barberry. This shrub is so well known by every boy or girl that has but attained to the age of 7 years that it needs no description. Government and virtues. Mars owns the shrub and presents it to the use of my countrymen to purge their bodies of choler. The inner rind of the barberry tree boiled in white wine, and 1/4 of a pint drank each morning, is an excellent remedy to cleanse the body of choleric humors and free it from such diseases as choler causes, including scabs, itch, tetters, ringworms, yellow jaundice, and boils. It is excellent for hot agues, burnings, scaldings, heat of the blood, heat of the liver, and bloody flux. The berries are as good as the bark and more pleasing. They provide a good stomach for victuals by strengthening the attractive faculty, which is under Mars. The hair washed with the lye made of the tree, and water will make it turn yellow viz, of Mars's own color. The fruit and rind of the shrub, along with the flowers of broom and heath or furze, cleanse the body of choler by sympathy, as the flowers, leaves, and bark of the peach tree do by antipathy, because these are under Mars, while the latter are under Venus. Barley. The continual usefulness hereof hath made all in general so acquainted herewith that it is altogether needless to describe it, several kinds hereof plentifully growing, being yearly sown in this land. The virtues thereof take as follow. Government and virtues. It is a notable plant of Saturn. If you view diligently its effects by sympathy and antipathy, you may easily perceive a reason for them, as also why barley bread is so unwholesome for melancholy people. Barley in all its parts and compositions, except malt, is more cooling than wheat and a little cleansing. All the preparations thereof, such as barley water and other things made from it, give great nourishment to persons troubled with fevers, agues, and heats in the stomach. A poultice made of barley meal or flour boiled in vinegar and honey, with a few dry figs added, dissolves all imposthumes and assuages inflammations when applied. Boiled with melilot and chamomile flowers, and some linseed, fenugreek, and rue in powder, and applied warm, it eases pains in the side and stomach and windiness of the spleen. The meal of barley and fleawort boiled in water, made into a poultice with honey and oil of lilies, and applied warm, cures swellings under the ears, throat, neck, and similar areas. A plaster made from it with tar and sharp vinegar applied hot helps the leprosy. Boiled in red wine with pomegranate rinds and myrtles, it stays the lask or other flux of the belly. Boiled with vinegar and quince, it eases the pains of gout. Barley flour, white salt, honey, and vinegar mingled together take away the itch speedily and certainly. The water distilled from green barley at the end of May is very good for those that have defluxions of humors fallen into their eyes and eases the pain when dropped into them. White bread steeped therein and bound on the eyes does the same. Garden basil or sweet basil. This herb is so well known to be an inhabitant almost in every garden that I shall not need to write any description thereof. However, its virtues, which are many, may not be omitted. Description. The greater of ordinary basil rises up usually with one upright stalk, diversely branching forth on all sides, with 2 leaves at every joint. These leaves are somewhat broad and round, yet pointed of a pale green color but fresh. They are a little snipped around the edges and have a strong, healthy scent. The flowers are small and white, standing at the tops of the branches with 2 small leaves at the joints. In some places, these leaves are green, and in others brown. After the flowers come black seeds. The root perishes at the approach of winter, and therefore must be newly sown every year. Place. It grows in gardens. Time. It must be sown late and flowers in the heart of summer, being a very tender plant. Government and virtues. This is the herb which all authors are together by the ears about, and rail at one another like lawyers. Galen and Dioscorides hold it not fit to be taken inwardly, and Chrysippus rails at it with downright Billingsgate rhetoric. Pliny and the Arabian physicians defend it. For my own part, I presently found that speech true. Non nostrium inter nos tantas componere lites. And away to Dr. Reason went I, who told me it was an herb of Mars and under the scorpion, and perhaps therefore called basilicon. It is no marvel if it carries a kind of virulent quality with it. Being applied to the place bitten by venomous beasts or stung by a wasp or hornet, it speedily draws the poison to it. Every like draws his like. Mizaldus affirms that being laid to rot in horse dung, it will breed venomous beasts. Hilarius, a French physician, affirms upon his own knowledge that an acquaintance of his, by common smelling to it, had a scorpion bred in his brain. Something is the matter. This herb and rue will not grow together, no, nor near one another. We know rue is as great an enemy to poison as any that grows. To conclude, it expels both birth and afterbirth. As it helps the deficiency of Venus in one kind, so it spoils all her actions in another. I dare write no more of it. The Bay Tree. This is so well known that it needs no description. Therefore I shall only write the virtues thereof, which are many. Government and virtues. I shall only add a word or two to what my friend has written, viz., that it is a tree of the sun and under the celestial sign Leo, and resists witchcraft very potently, as also all the evils old Saturn can do to the body of man. These are not a few, for it is the speech of one, and I am mistaken if it were not Mizaldus that neither witch nor devil, thunder nor lightning will hurt a man in the place where a bay tree is. Galen said that the leaves or bark do dry and heal very much, and the berries more than the leaves. The bark of the root is less sharp and hot, but more bitter, and has some astriction withal, whereby it is effectual to break the stone, and good to open obstructions of the liver, spleen, and other inward parts, which bring jaundice, dropsy, etc. The berries are very effectual against all poison of venomous creatures and the stings of wasps and bees, as also against the pestilence or other infectious diseases. Therefore they are put into sundry treacles for that purpose. They likewise procure women's courses, and 7 of them given to a woman in sore travail of childbirth do cause a speedy delivery and expel the afterbirth. Therefore they should not be taken by those who have not gone out their time, lest they procure abortion or cause labor too soon. They wonderfully help all cold and rheumatic distillations from the brain to the eyes, lungs, or other parts. And being made into an electuary with honey, they help consumption, old coughs, shortness of breath, and thin rheums, as well as megrim. They mightily expel the wind and provoke urine, help the mother, and kill worms. The leaves also work the same effect. A bath of the decoction of leaves and berries is singularly good for women to sit in who are troubled with the mother or the diseases thereof, or the stoppings of their courses, or for the diseases of the bladder, pains in the bowels by wind, and stoppage of the urine. A decoction of equal parts of bayberries, cumin seed, hyssop, origanum, and euphorbium, with some honey, and the head bathed therewith, wonderfully helps distillations and rheums, and settles the palate of the mouth into its place. The oil made of the berries is very comfortable in all cold griefs of the joints, nerves, arteries, stomach, belly, or womb, and helps palsies, convulsions, cramps, aches, tremblings, numbness in any part, weariness, and pains that come from sore traveling. All griefs and pains proceeding from wind, either in the head, stomach, back, belly, or womb, are cured by anointing the affected parts with the oil. Pains in the ears are also cured by dropping some of the oil or by receiving the fume of the decoction of the berries through a funnel. The oil takes away the marks of the skin and flesh by bruises, falls, etc., and dissolves the congealed blood in them. It also helps the itch, scabs, and wheals in the skin. Beans. Both the garden and field beans are so well known that it saves me the labor of writing any description of them. The virtues follow. Government and virtues. They are plants of Venus, and the distilled water of the flower of garden beans is good to clean the face and skin from spots and wrinkles, and the meal or flour of them, or the small beans, do the same. The water distilled from the green husk is held to be very effectual against the stone and to provoke urine. Bean flour is used in poultices to assuage inflammations arising from wounds and the swelling of women's breasts caused by the curdling of their milk and represses their milk. Flour of beans and fenugreek mixed with honey and applied to felons, boils, bruises, or blue marks by blows, or the imposthumes in the kernels of the ears helps them all. With rose leaves, frankincense, and the white of an egg being applied to the eyes, it helps those that are swollen or do water, or have received any blow upon them, if used with wine. If a bean be parted in two, the skin being taken away, and laid on the place where the leech hath been set that bleeds too much, stays the bleeding. Bean flour boiled to a poultice with wine and vinegar, and some oil put thereto, eases both pains and swelling of the privities. The husk boiled in water to the consumption of a third part thereof, stays a lask. And the ashes of the husks, made up with old hog's grease, help the old pains, contusions, and wounds of the sinews, the sciatica, and gout. The field beans have all the aforementioned virtues as the garden beans. Beans eaten are extremely windy meat. But if after the Dutch fashion, when they are half-boiled, you husk them and then stew them, I cannot tell you how, for I never was a cook in all my life. They are wholesome food. French beans. Description. This French or kidney bean arises at first with one stalk, which afterwards divides itself into many arms or branches, all so weak that if they are not sustained with sticks or poles, they will be fruitless upon the ground. At several places on these branches grow footstalks, each with 3 broad, round, and pointed green leaves at the end. Towards the top, diverse flowers made like pea blossoms emerge, typically white, but also found in yellow, red, blackish, or deep purple colors, with white being the most usual. After the flowers come long and slender flat pods, some crooked, some straight, with a string running down their backs. Inside these pods are flattish round fruits made like kidneys, containing exceedingly hard black seeds that will stick upon your clothes. The root is long, spreading with many strings annexed to it, and perishes every year. There is another sort of French beans commonly growing with us in this land, called the scarlet flower bean. This rises with sundry branches like the other, but runs higher, to the length of hop poles. Around these stalks grow twining vines that turn contrary to the sun, having footstalks with 3 leaves on each, similar to the others. The flowers are like the other kind, but are of a most vibrant scarlet color. The beans are larger than the ordinary kind, of a deep purple color turning black when ripe and dry. The root perishes in winter. Government and virtues. These beans belong to Dame Venus. When dried and beaten into powder, they are as great strengtheners of the kidneys as any other remedy. A dram taken in white wine prevents the formation of stones or cleanses the kidneys of gravel or stoppage. The ordinary French beans are easy to digest. They move the belly, provoke urine, enlarge the breast that is straightened with shortness of breath, engender sperm, and incite to venery. The scarlet-colored beans, admired for the glorious beauty of their color when set near a quickset hedge, greatly adorn the same by climbing up on them. This allows them to be discerned from a great distance, garnering admiration from beholders. However, they tend to grow near and kill the quicksets by clothing them in scarlet. Ladies' bedstraw. Besides the common name above written, it is called cheese rennet because it performs the same office, as also galion, petty mugget, maidenhair, and by some wild rosemary. Description. This rises up with diverse small brown and square upright stalks, a yard high or more. Sometimes it branches forth into diverse parts, full of joints, and with very fine small leaves at every one of them, little or nothing rough at all. At the tops of the branches grow many long tufts or branches of yellow flowers, very thickly set together from the several joints, consisting of 4 leaves apiece. These flowers smell somewhat strong, but not unpleasant. The seeds are small and black like poppy seeds, 2 for the most part joined together. The root is reddish, with many small threads fastened to it which take strong hold of the ground and creep a little. The branches, leaning a little down to the ground, take root at the joints thereof, thereby easily increasing. There is another sort of lady's bed straw growing frequently in England, called the scarlet flower bean. This rises with sundry branches like the other, but runs higher to the length of hop poles. Around these stalks grow twining vines that turn contrary to the sun, having footstalks with 3 leaves on each, similar to the others. The flowers are like the other kind, but are of a most vibrant scarlet color. The beans are larger than the ordinary kind, of a deep purple color turning black when ripe and dry. The root perishes in winter. Place. They grow in meadows and pastures, both wet and dry, and by the hedges. Time. They flower in May for the most part, and the seed is ripe in July and August. Government and virtues. They are both herbs of Venus, and therefore strengthen the parts both internal and external, which she rules. The decoction of the former, being drank, is good to fret and break the stone, provoke the urine, stay inward bleeding, and heal inward wounds. The herb or flower bruised and put into the nostrils stays their bleeding likewise. The flowers and herbs made into an oil by being set in the sun and changed after it has stood 10 or 12 days, or into an ointment being boiled in axunga or salad oil with some wax melted therein after being strained. Either the oil or the ointment help burnings with fire or scalding with water. The same, or the decoction of the herb and flower, is good to bathe the feet of travelers and lackeys, whose long running causes weariness and stiffness in the sinews and joints. If the decoction is used warm and the joints afterwards anointed with ointment, it helps the dry scab and the itch in children. The herb with the white flower is also very good for the sinews, arteries, and joints to comfort and strengthen them after travel, cold, and pains. Beets. There are 2 sorts of beets that are best known generally, and I shall principally treat of them at this time, namely the white and red beets and their virtues. Description. The common white beet has many great leaves near the ground, somewhat large and of a whitish-green color. The stalk is great, strong, and ribbed, bearing a great store of leaves upon it almost to the very top. The flowers grow in very long tufts, small at the end and turning down their heads. These are small, pale, greenish-yellow buds, giving cornered, prickly seeds. The root is great, long, and hard, and when it has given seed is of no use at all. The common red beet differs not from the white, but only is less. The leaves and the roots are somewhat red. The leaves are differently red. Some only have red stalks or veins, some are of a fresh red, and others of a dark red. The root thereof is red, spongy, and not used to be eaten. Place. They grow in meadows and pastures, both wet and dry, and by the hedges. Time. They flower in May for the most part, and their seed is ripe in July and August. Government and virtues. They are both herbs of Venus, and therefore strengthen the parts both internal and external, which she rules. The decoction of the white beet, when drank, is good to fret and break the stone, provoke urine, stay inward bleeding, and heal inward wounds. The herb or flower bruised and put into the nostrils stays their bleeding likewise. The flowers and herbs made into an oil by being set in the sun and changed after it has stood 10 or 12 days, or into an ointment being boiled in axunga or salad oil with some wax melted therein after being strained. Either the oil or the ointment help burnings with fire or scalding with water. The same, or the decoction of the herb and flower, is good to bathe the feet of travelers and lackeys, whose long running causes weariness and stiffness in the sinews and joints. If the decoction is used warm and the joints afterwards anointed with ointment, it helps the dry scab and the itch in children. The herb with the white flower is also very good for the sinews, arteries, and joints, to comfort and strengthen them after travel, cold, and pains. The red beet is good to stay the bloody flux, women's courses, and the whites, and to help the yellow jaundice. The juice of the root put into the nostrils purges the head, helps the noise in the ears, and eases the toothache. The juice snuffed up the nose helps a stinking breath if the cause lies in the nose, as it often does, especially if any bruise has been there. Water betony. Called also brownwort, and in Yorkshire, bishop's leaves. Description. First, of the water betony. which rises up with square, hard, greenish stalks, sometimes brown, set with broad dark green leaves dented about the edges with notches somewhat resembling the leaves of the wood betony, but much larger too, for the most part set at a joint. The flowers are many, set at the tops of the stalks and branches, being round-bellied and open at the brims, and divided into two parts. The uppermost part is like a hood, and the lowermost like a hip hanging down of a dark red color. Afterward, small round heads with small points at the ends come in their places, containing small and brownish seeds. The root is a thick bush of strings and shreds growing from the head. There is another sort of lady's bedstraw growing frequently in England, which bears white flowers as the other does yellow. But the branches of this are so weak that unless sustained by the hedges or other supports near which it grows, it will lie down to the ground. The leaves are a little bigger than the former, and the flowers not so plentiful as these. The root hereof is also thready and abiding. Place. They grow by the ditch side, brooks, and other watercourses, generally throughout this land, and are seldom found far from the water side. Time. They flower about July, and the seed is ripe in August. Government and virtues. Water betony is an herb of Jupiter in Cancer and is appropriated more to wounds and hurts in the breast than wood betony, which follows. It is an excellent remedy for sick hogs. It is of a cleansing quality. The leaves, bruised and applied, are effectual for all old and filthy ulcers, especially if the juice of the leaves is boiled with a little honey, dipped therein, and the sores dressed with it. It is also effective for bruises and hurts, whether inward or outward. The distilled water of the leaves is used for the same purpose, as well as to bathe the face and hands that are spotted, blemished, or discolored by sunburning. I confess I do not much fancy distilled waters. I mean such waters as are distilled cold. Some virtues of the herb they may haply have, it would be a strange thing else. But this I am confident of, that being distilled in a pewter still, as the vulgar and apish fashion is, both chemical oil and salt are left behind unless you burn them, and then all is spoiled water and all which was good for as little as can be by such a distillation. Wood betony. This is so well known that it needs no description. Therefore I shall only write the virtues thereof, which are many. Government and virtues. I shall only add a word or two to what my friend has written, viz., that it is a tree of the sun and under the celestial sign Leo, and resists witchcraft very potently, as also all the evils old Saturn can do to the body of man. These are not a few, for it is the speech of one. And I am mistaken if it were not Mizaldus that neither witch nor devil, thunder nor lightning, will hurt a man in the place where a bay tree is. Galen said that the leaves or bark do dry and heal very much, and the berries more than the leaves. The bark of the root is less sharp and hot, but more bitter, and has some astriction withal, whereby it is effectual to break the stone and good to open obstructions of the liver, spleen, and other inward parts which bring jaundice, dropsy, etc. The berries are very effectual against all poison of venomous creatures and the stings of wasps and bees, as also against the pestilence or other infectious diseases. Therefore they are put into sundry treacles for that purpose. They likewise procure women's courses, and 7 of them given to a woman in sore travail of childbirth do cause a speedy delivery and expel the afterbirth. Therefore they should not be taken by those who have not gone out their time, lest they procure abortion or cause labor too soon. They wonderfully help all cold and rheumatic distillations from the brain to the eyes, lungs, or other parts, and being made into an electuary with honey, they help consumption, old coughs, shortness of breath, and thin rheums, as well as megrim. They mightily expel the wind and provoke urine, help the mother, and kill worms. The leaves also work the same effect. A bath of the decoction of leaves and berries is singularly good for women to sit in who are troubled with the mother or the diseases thereof, or the stoppings of their courses, or for the diseases of the bladder, pains in the bowels by wind, and stoppage of the urine. A decoction of equal parts of bayberries, cumin seed, hyssop, origanum, and euphorbium, with some honey, and the head bathed therewith, wonderfully helps distillations and rheums, and settles the palate of the mouth into its place. The oil made of the berries is very comfortable in all cold griefs of the joints, nerves, arteries, stomach, belly, or womb, and helps palsies, convulsions, cramps, aches, tremblings, numbness in any part, weariness, and pains that come from sore traveling. All griefs and pains proceeding from wind, either in the head, stomach, back, belly, or womb, are cured by anointing the affected parts with the oil. Pains in the ears are also cured by dropping some of the oil or by receiving the fume of the decoction of the berries through a funnel. The oil takes away the marks of the skin and flesh by bruises, falls, etc., and dissolves the congealed blood in them. It also helps the itch, scabs, and wheals in the skin. These are some of the many virtues Antonius Musa, an expert physician, for it was not the practice of Octavius Caesar to keep fools about him, appropriates to Bethany. It is a very precious herb, that is certain, and most fitting to be kept in a man's house, both in syrup, conserve, oil, ointment, and plaister. The flowers are usually conserved. The beech tree. The beech tree being discussed here is the green-massed beech, distinguished from the smaller, rough variety known as hornbeam in Essex. This tree is widely recognized and doesn't need much description. Place. It grows in woods, among oaks and other trees, in parks, forests, and chases, where it serves to feed deer. It's also found in other areas where it helps fatten swine. Time. The beech tree blooms in late April or early May, and its fruit ripens in September. Government and virtues. The beech is associated with Saturn, and its qualities reflect this influence. The leaves are cooling and binding, making them ideal for use in treating hot swellings. The nuts nourish livestock that feed on them. Additionally, the water found in the hollow spaces of decaying beeches is effective in curing scurf and running tetters in both humans and animals. The leaves can be boiled into a poultice or made into an ointment for use during the appropriate season. Bilberries called by some horts, and whortleberries. Description. There are two sorts of bilberries that are common in England, the black and the red bilberries. Black bilberries grow on small bushes that creep along the ground, scarcely rising half a yard high. These bushes have diverse small green leaves set on green branches, not always directly opposite each other, and slightly dented around the edges. At the base of the leaves emerge small, hollow, pale, bluish-colored flowers with 5 points, featuring a reddish thread in the middle. These flowers develop into small round berries, similar in size and color to juniper berries, but with a sweetish, sharp taste. The juice of these berries stains the hands and lips a purplish color, especially when they are broken. The roots grow sloping underground, sprouting in various places as they creep. This plant loses its leaves in winter. Red bilberries, also known as whortle bushes, resemble the black bilberries but are distinguished by their reddish foliage. The leaves are somewhat red, with some having red stalks or veins, while others display a fresh or dark red hue. The roots of the red bilberries are spongy and not typically eaten. Place. Black bilberries grow in forests, on heaths, and other barren places. Red bilberries are commonly found in the northern parts of England, such as Lancashire and Yorkshire. Time. Bilberries flower in March and April for the most part, and the fruit of the black bilberries is ripe by July and August. Government and virtues. Bilberries are under the dominion of Jupiter. It is a pity they are not used more in medicine as they deserve. Black bilberries are excellent for treating hot agues and cooling the heat of the liver and stomach. They have a binding effect on the belly and help to stop vomiting and loathing. The juice of the berries, made into a syrup or conserve with sugar, is beneficial for these purposes as well as for treating old coughs, ulcers in the lungs, and other related diseases. Black bilberries are also effective in soothing skin conditions such as wheals, pushes, blisters, and blains. The herb, when boiled and applied to chilblains or kibes, aids in their healing. Additionally, a decoction of the berries in water with some vinegar can relieve itching and cleanse the head of dandruff, scurf, and dry scabs. It is also effective against running sores, ulcers, and cankers in various parts of the body, and is highly recommended for combating baldness and hair shedding. Red bilberries are effective in stopping the bloody flux, women's courses, and the whites. They also aid in alleviating yellow jaundice. The juice of the red bilberry root, when applied to the nostrils, purges the head, helps noise in the ears, and eases toothaches. Snuffing the juice up the nose helps eliminate stinking breath, especially if the cause lies there, often due to bruising or loss of smell. Bifoil or Oneblade. Description: this small herb, with a somewhat sweet root shooting downwards in many long strings, rises up a round green stalk, bare or naked near the ground for an inch, 2 or 3 to the middle thereof as it ages or grows. From the middle upwards to the flowers, it has only 2 broad, plantain-like leaves, but whiter, set at the middle of the stalk one against another, compassing it round at the bottom of them. There is another sort that grows in wet grounds and marshes, which is somewhat different from the former. It is a smaller plant and greener, having sometimes 3 leaves. The spike of the flowers is less than the former, and the roots of this do run or creep in the ground. Place. It is an usual inhabitant in woods, copses, and many places in this land. Time. It flowers in May and June for the most part, and the seed is ripe in July and August. Government and virtues. They are both herbs of Saturn and therefore perform his qualities and proportions in these operations. They are often used by many for good purposes for wounds, both green and old, to consolidate or knit ruptures, and rightly so, being a plant of Saturn. The birch tree. Description: this grows a goodly tall, straight tree, fraught with many boughs and slender branches bending downward. The old trees are covered with discolored chapped bark, and the younger ones are much browner. The leaves, when first breaking out, are crumpled and afterwards become like beech leaves but smaller, greener, and dented about the edges. It bears small, short catskins, somewhat like those of the hazelnut tree, which remain on the branches a long time. When they are ripe, they fall to the ground along with their seeds. The root is a thick bush of strings and shreds growing from the head. Place. It usually grows in woods. Government and virtues. It is a tree of Venus. The juice of the leaves, while they are young, or the distilled water of them, or the water that comes from the tree being bored with an auger and distilled afterwards, when drank for some days together, is available to break the stone in the kidneys and bladder, and is also good to wash sore mouths. Bird's foot. Description: this small herb grows not above a span high with many branches spread upon the ground, set with many wings of small leaves. The flowers grow upon the branches, many small ones of a pale yellow color being set ahead together, which afterwards turn into small jointed pods, well resembling the claw of small birds, whence it took its name. There is another sort of bird's foot in all things like the former, but a little larger. The flowers of this sort are of a pale whitish and red color, and the pods are distinct by joints like the other, but a little more crooked. The roots carry many small white knots or kernels amongst the strings. Place. They grow on heaths and many open untilled places of this land. Time. They flower and seed at the end of summer. Government and virtues. They belong to Saturn and are of a drying, binding quality, thereby making them very good to be used in wound drinks as well as to apply outwardly for the same purpose. The latter bird's foot is found by experience to break the stone in the back or kidneys and drive them forth if the decoction thereof is taken. It wonderfully helps the ruptures when taken inwardly and outwardly applied to the place. All sorts have their best operations upon the stone, much like ointments and plasters have upon wounds. Therefore, you may make a salt of this for the stone. The method to do so may be found in my translation of the London Dispensatory, and I may provide it again in plainer terms at the latter end of this book. Bishop's weed. Called also Ami and Amois. Some call it Ethiopian cumin seed, cumin royal, herb William, and bullwort. Description: common bishop's weed rises up with a round, straight stalk, sometimes as high as a man, but usually 3 or 4 feet high. It is beset with diverse small, long, and somewhat broad leaves, cut in some places and dented about the edges, growing one against another, of a dark green color. It has sundry branches on them, and at the top, small umbels of white flowers grow, resembling lavender but thicker and shorter for the most part, and of a reddish or purple color, spotted with white in both the upper and lower parts. After the flowers pass, small round seeds little bigger than parsley seeds develop of a quick hot scent and taste. The root is white and stringy, perishing yearly, and usually rises again from its own sowing. There is another sort of bishop's weed commonly growing with us in this land, called the scarlet flower bean. This grows similarly but is somewhat larger. The flowers are of a pale whitish and red color, and the pods are distinct by joints like the other but a little more crooked. The roots of this sort carry many small white knots or kernels amongst the strings. Place. It grows wild in many places in England and Wales, such as between Greenhithe and Gravesend. Government and virtues. Bishop's weed is hot and dry in the 3rd degree, of a bitter taste, and somewhat sharp withal. It provokes lust to purpose. I suppose Venus owns it. It digests humors, provokes urine and women's courses, dissolves wind, and when taken in wine, it eases pains and griping in the bowels. It is good against the biting of serpents and is used effectively in those medicines which are given to hinder the poisonous operation of cantharides upon the passage of urine. When mixed with honey and applied to black and blue marks from blows or bruises, it takes them away. When drank or outwardly applied, it abates a high color and makes it pale. The fumes thereof, taken with rosin or raisins, cleanse the mother. Bistort or snakeweed. Description. This small herb grows not above a span high with many branches spread upon the ground, set with many wings of small leaves. The flowers grow upon the branches, many small ones of a pale yellow color being set ahead together, which afterwards turn into small jointed pods, well resembling the claw of small birds, whence it took its name. There is another sort of bird's foot in all things like the former, but a little larger. The flowers of this sort are of a pale whitish and red color, and the pods are distinct by joints like the other, but a little more crooked. The roots of this sort carry many small white knots or kernels amongst the strings. Place. They grow on heaths and many open untilled places of this land. Time. They flower and seed at the end of summer. Government and virtues. They belong to Saturn and are of a drying, binding quality, thereby making them very good to be used in wound drinks, as well as to apply outwardly for the same purpose. The latter bird's foot is found by experience to break the stone in the back or kidneys and drive them forth if the decoction thereof is taken. It wonderfully helps the ruptures when taken inwardly and outwardly applied to the place. All sorts have their best operations upon the stone, much like ointments and plasters have upon wounds. Therefore, you may make a salt of this for the stone. The method to do so may be found in my translation of the London Dispensatory, and I may provide it again in plainer terms at the latter end of this book. Bistort, or snakeweed, is a versatile herb with numerous medicinal virtues. As a plant of Saturn, it harnesses the planet's qualities of binding and drying, making it exceptionally effective for treating various ailments related to internal and external wounds. Its ability to break stones in the kidneys and bladder highlights its potent diuretic and lithotriptic properties, essential for cleansing and purging the body of harmful substances. The decoctions made from its roots are not only beneficial for breaking stones, but also play a significant role in healing ruptures and easing pain from bruises and other injuries. When applied externally, the decoctions facilitate rapid healing and provide relief from inflammation and pain. Additionally, Bistort's efficacy in purging toxins and promoting urine flow underscores its importance in maintaining kidney health and preventing the accumulation of stones. Externally, the herb's applications extend to treating various skin conditions, burns, and scalds. The ability to create effective ointments and plasters from Bistort ensures that both acute and chronic wounds can be managed efficiently, promoting faster recovery and reducing the risk of infection. In summary, Bistort, or snakeweed, is a highly valuable herb in traditional medicine, revered for its ability to cleanse, heal, and protect the body from a range of ailments. Its multifaceted applications make it an indispensable addition to any herbal medicine repertoire. Oneblade. Description. This small plant never bears more than one leaf, except when it rises up with its stalk. Thereon it bears another and seldom more. The leaves are of a bluish-green color, broad at the bottom and pointed with many ribs or veins, resembling those of plantain. At the top of the stalk grow many small star-shaped flowers that smell somewhat sweet. After the flowers pass, small reddish berries develop, resembling sorrel seeds but slightly larger. The root is small, about the size of a rush, lying and creeping under the upper crust of the earth, sprouting in diverse places each year. This root perishes annually, and the plant typically rises again from its own sowing place. It grows in moist, shadowy, grassy places of woods, and in many other areas throughout this realm. Time. It flowers around May, and the berries are ripe by June. After ripening, the plant quickly perishes until it springs up again the following year. Government and virtues. Oneblade is a herb of the sun and therefore possesses cordial qualities. Half a dram, or a dram at most, of the root in powder taken in wine and vinegar, each in a little quantity, and the party is then laid to sweat, is held to be a sovereign remedy for those infected with the plague and those who have a sore upon them. This preparation expels the poison and defends the heart and spirit from danger. Additionally, Oneblade is considered a singularly good wound herb. It is used in combination with other herbs to create balms necessary for curing wounds, whether green or old, and especially effective if the nerves are hurt. The bramble or blackberry bush. This shrub is so well known that it needs no description. The virtues thereof are as follows. Government and virtues. The bramble is a plant of Venus in Aries. If anyone asks why Venus is so prickly, tell them it is because she is in the house of Mars. The buds, leaves, and branches, while they are green, are of good use in treating ulcers and putrid sores of the mouth and throat, as well as quinsy. They also heal other fresh wounds and sores. However, the flowers and unripe fruit are very binding and are profitable for treating the bloody flux, lascs, and as a remedy for spitting blood. Whether the decoction of the powder or of the root is taken, it is effective in breaking or driving forth gravel and stones in the reins and kidneys. The leaves and brambles, whether green or dry, make excellent lotions for sores in the mouth or secret parts. The decoction of the leaves and dried branches significantly binds the belly and is beneficial for excessive flowing of women's courses. The berries of the flowers are a powerful remedy against the poison of the most venomous serpents. They are effective both when drunk and when outwardly applied. Additionally, they help sores of the fundament and piles. When the juice of the berries is mixed with the juice of mulberries, it binds more effectively and aids all fretting and eating sores and ulcers wherever they may be. The distilled water of the branches, leaves, flowers, or fruit is very pleasant in taste and highly effective in treating fevers and hot distempers of the body, head, eyes, and other parts, as well as for the purposes previously mentioned. Boiling the leaves in lye and washing the head with it heals the itch and running sores and makes the hair black. The powder of the leaves, when strewn on cankers and running ulcers, wonderfully helps to heal them. Some use to condense the juice of the leaves, and some the juice of the berries to keep for their use all year round for the aforementioned purposes. Blights. Description. There are two sorts of blights commonly known, namely the white and red blights. The white blight has leaves somewhat like beets, but smaller, rounder, and of a whitish-green color, each standing upon a small, long footstalk. The stalk rises up 2 or 3 feet high, bearing similar leaves. The flowers grow at the top in long, round tufts or clusters, containing small and round seeds. The root is very full of threads or strings. The red blight is similar to the white, but differs in that its leaves and tufted heads are exceedingly red at first and then turn more purple. There are other kinds of blights that grow differently from the two former sorts, but are smaller in every part. Only the wild varieties are smaller in every aspect. Place. They grow in gardens and wild in many places throughout this land. Time. They seed in August and September. Government and virtues. All sorts of blights are cooling, drying, and binding, serving to restrain the fluxes of blood in both man and woman, especially the red blights, which also stay the overflowing of the women's reds, while the white blights stay the whites in women. It is an excellent secret. You cannot fail in its use. They are all under the dominion of Venus. There is another sort of wild blights, similar to the other wild kinds, but with long and spiky heads of greenish seeds, which appear to be all seed due to their thick setting together. This sort delights fishers and is good and usual bait, as fishes will bite fast enough at them if you have the wit to catch them when they bite. Borage and bugloss? Borage and bugloss are well-known herbs in every garden, so they need no introduction. However, there is a third herb, less common and less familiar, that should be discussed. It is called langue de bœuf, which means ox tongue in French. This is curious because both bugloss and langue de bœuf mean the same thing in Greek and French, respectively. Description of langue de bœuf. The leaves of langue de bœuf are smaller than those of bugloss, but much rougher. The stalks grow to about 1.5 feet high, usually with a red color. The flowers appear in scaly round heads, consisting of many small yellow flowers, resembling dandelion. The seeds are carried away by the wind in fluffy down. The taste of the flowers is notably bitter. Place. This herb grows wild in many areas of the land and can be found near London, particularly between Rotherhithe and Deptford along ditch sides. Its virtues are similar to borage and bugloss, but are considered to be somewhat hotter. Time. The herb flowers in June and July, and the seeds ripen shortly afterward. Government and virtues. All three of these herbs, borage, bugloss, and langue de bœuf, are governed by Jupiter and under the sign of Leo. They are great cordials and powerful strengtheners of nature. The leaves and roots are especially useful in putrid and pestilential fevers to protect the heart and help expel poisons or venom from the body. The seeds, leaves, flowers, and roots help increase milk production in women's breasts, combat pensiveness and melancholy, clarify the blood, and cool excessive heat in fevers. A syrup made from the juice of these herbs is effective in opening obstructions, helping the yellow jaundice, and cooling and cleansing the blood when mixed with fumitory. The herbs also assist in treating the itch, ringworms, tetters, and other spreading sores. Candied flowers or a conserve made from them act as a cordial, beneficial for those weakened by long illness or those with heart-related symptoms. Distilled water from the herbs is also effective for treating the eyes, reducing redness, and alleviating inflammation. Dried herbs are never used, but the green ones are. Ashes of the plant boiled in mead or honeyed water can help with mouth and throat ulcers, and bugloss roots are useful in a lickable electuary for clearing the throat and reducing thick phlegm, especially in cases of cough or rheumatic lung conditions. Bluebottle. It is called cyanus, I suppose from its color, hurt sickle, because it turns the edge of the sickles that reap the corn, blue blow cornflower, and bluebottle. Description. I shall only describe the commonest and, in my opinion, the most useful variety. Its leaves spread upon the ground, being of a whitish-green color and somewhat similar on the edges to those of corn scabious. Among these leaves rises a stalk divided into several branches, beset with long greenish leaves that are either very slightly indented or not at all. The flowers are of a bluish color, which gives the herb its name. They form an innumerable company set in a scaly head not much unlike those of knapweed. The seed is smooth, bright, and shining, wrapped up in a woolly mantle. The root perishes every year. Place. They grow in cornfields among all sorts of corn, except peas, beans, and tares. If you take them up from there and transplant them to your garden, especially during the full moon, they will grow more abundantly and may even change color. Time. They flower from the beginning of May until the end of the harvest. Government and virtues. As they are naturally cold, dry, and binding, they are under the dominion of Saturn. The powder or dried leaves of bluebottle or cornflower is given with good success to those bruised by a fall or who have broken a vein inwardly and are bleeding from the mouth. Taken in water along with plantain, horsetail, or the greater confray, it is a remedy against the poison of the scorpion and resists all venoms and poisons. The seed or leaves taken in wine are very good against the plague and all infectious diseases, and they work well in pestilential fevers. The juice, When applied to fresh or green wounds, quickly solder the lips of the wounds together and is very effective in healing all ulcers and sores in the mouth. The juice dropped into the eyes alleviates heat and inflammation. The distilled water of this herb has the same properties and may be used for the effects mentioned above. Brancursine. Besides the common name Brancursine, it is also called bear's breech and acanthus. I think our English names are more proper, for the Greek word acanthus signifies any thistle whatsoever. Description: this thistle sends forth many large, thick, smooth green leaves on the ground with a very thick and juicy middle rib. The leaves are deeply cut along the edges and remain for a long time before any stalk appears. Later, a reasonably large stalk 3 or 4 feet high rises, adorned with flowers from its middle upward. The lower part of the stalk bears no branches or leaves. The flowers are hooded and open, white in color, set in brownish husks, with a long, small, undivided leaf beneath each flower. They seldom set seed in our country. The roots are many, large and thick, blackish on the outside and whitish within, full of a clammy sap. A piece of the root, if planted in a garden and protected from the early winter cold, will grow and flourish. Place: they are nursed in gardens in England, where they grow very well. Time: it flowers in June and July. Government and virtues: Brancursine is an excellent plant under the dominion of the moon. I wish that those who are studious would labor to keep it in their gardens. When the leaves are boiled and used in clysters, they are excellent to mollify the belly and make the passage slippery. A decoction of the leaves, when taken internally, is excellent for arresting the bloody flux. When the leaves are boiled and applied as a poultice, they help unite broken bones and strengthen dislocated joints. A decoction of either the leaves or the roots, taken internally, with the leaves decoction applied externally, is very good for curing the king's evil, scrofula, that is broken and running. By the influence of the moon, it revives relaxed ends of the veins. There is scarcely a better remedy for fire burns than this, for it extracts the heat and heals without scarring. It is an excellent remedy for ruptures, whether taken internally or applied externally. In like manner, it helps relieve cramps and gout and is exceedingly good in hectic fevers, restoring vital moisture to those in consumption. Bryony or wild vine. It is also called woodvine, tamus, or lady's seal. The white variety is sometimes known as white vine, and the black as black vine. Description: the common white bryony grows by ramping along hedges. It sends forth many long, rough, very tender branches at first, on which grow numerous, very rough and broad leaves. These leaves, mostly divided into 5 parts, resemble vine leaves, but are smaller, rougher, and of a whitish, hoary green color. They spread widely by twining on whatever stands nearby, using small claspers that appear at the joints with the leaves. At several joints, especially toward the top of the branches, a long stalk emerges bearing many whitish flowers together in a long tuft. Each tuft consists of 5 small leaves arranged like a star. After flowering, individual berries appear, resembling a cluster of grapes. They are green at first, then become very red when thoroughly ripe. The berries have no pleasing scent and possess a most loathsome taste that provokes vomiting. The root grows exceedingly large, with many long twines or branches radiating from it. It is pale whitish on the outside and even lighter within, with a sharp, bitter, and disagreeable taste. Place: it grows on banks or under hedges throughout this land. Its roots lie very deep. Time: it flowers in July and August, with some variations in timing between plants. Government and virtues. Bryony is a furious martial plant. Its root, when taken internally, purges the belly very violently, troubling the stomach and burning the liver. Therefore, it must not be used rashly. However, when its strong action is carefully corrected, the root proves very profitable in treating head diseases, such as falling sickness, giddiness, and swimmings, by drawing away much phlegm and rheumatic humors that oppress the head, as well as the joints and sinews. It is also useful for alleviating palsies, convulsions, cramps, and stitches in the sides, and for treating dropsy and provoking urine. The root cleanses the reins and kidneys from gravel and stone by opening obstructions of the spleen and consuming hardness and swelling thereof. A decoction of the root in wine, taken once a week at bedtime, cleanses scrofula, the mother, and helps expel the afterbirth. A dram of powdered root taken in white wine brings down excessive flows. An electuary made of the roots and honey mightily cleanses the chest of rotten phlegm and is wonderfully effective for treating an old, stubborn cough and shortness of breath. It also helps those who are bruised internally, expelling clotted or congealed blood. The leaves, fruit, and root all have cleansing properties for old and filthy sores. They are good against fretting and running cankers, gangrenes, and tetters, which is why some country people call the berries tetterberries. The root cleanses the skin wonderfully from black and blue spots, freckles, morphew, leprosy, foul scars, and other deformities. All running scabs and manginess are healed either by the powder of the dried root or its juice, especially the fine white hardened juice. The distilled water of the root has similar effects, though more weakly. When the root is bruised and applied directly to a place where bones are broken, it helps draw them together. It is likewise useful for removing splinters and thorns from the flesh, and when applied with a little wine, helps break boils and treat whitlows on the joints. For all these external applications, beginning with sores and cancers, it is recommended to mix the product with a little hog's grease or another suitable ointment. For those conditions requiring internal use, be aware that bryony purges very violently and demands skillful management in order not to overwhelm the patient. Brook lime or water pimpernel. Description: this herb sends forth a creeping root that produces strings at every joint as it runs. From this root emerge diverse green stalks, round and sappy, with some branches bearing somewhat broad, round, deep green, and thick leaves set in pairs. From the bottom of these leaves shoot long footstalks bearing sundry small blue flowers. Each flower consists of 5 small round pointed petals. There is another sort that is similar to the former but larger, with the flowers of a paler green color. Place: they grow in small standing waters and are usually found near watercresses. Time: they flower in June and July and give seed the month following. Government and virtues: brook lime is a hot and biting martial plant. It is commonly used together with watercresses in diet drinks, along with other herbs, to purge the blood and body of ill humors that would otherwise destroy health. They all provoke urine and help break and pass stones. They also procure women's courses and expel the dead child. When fried with butter and vinegar and applied warm, it helps with all manner of tumors, swellings, and inflammations. Such drinks ought to be made of sundry herbs according to the malady. I shall give a plain and easy rule at the latter end of this book. Butcher's broom. It is called ruscus, bruscus, knee-holm, knee-holly, knee-hulver, and pedigree. Description: the first shoots that sprout from the root of butcher's broom are thick, whitish, and short, somewhat like those of asparagus but larger. They grow to about 1.5 feet high and branch out into several green divisions that are somewhat creased, tough, and flexible. On these branches are set broad and almost round, hard leaves that are prickly and pointed at the end. Usually 2 leaves grow very close together at each node. About the middle of each leaf, on its back and lower side from the middle rib, a small whitish-green flower appears. This flower consists of 4 small, round, pointed petals and grows almost without a stalk. In the same place, a small, round berry develops, which is green at first and turns red when ripe. Inside the berry are 2 or 3 white, hard, round seeds. The root is thick, white, and large at its head, and it sends forth many thick, white, long, and tough strings. Place: it grows in copses, upon heaths and waste grounds, and is often found under or near holly bushes. Time: it sends forth its young buds in the spring, and the berries are ripe by about September, while the branches and leaves remain green all winter. Government and virtues: butcher's broom is a plant of Mars, possessing a gallant, cleansing, and opening quality. A decoction of its root made with wine is excellent to open obstructions, provoke urine, and help expel gravel and stones. It is also beneficial for alleviating strangury and regulating women's courses, as well as for treating yellow jaundice and headaches. With added honey or sugar, this decoction cleanses the breast of phlegm and the chest of clammy humors. Furthermore, the decoction of the root, when taken internally, and a poultice made of the berries and leaves, are effective in knitting and consolidating broken bones or joints that have been dislocated. The common method is to boil the root along with parsley, fennel, and smallage in white wine, then add the same quantity of grass root. The stronger the decoction, achieved by using more root, the better it works, and it does not produce ill effects, provided it is given with proper care to the strongest bodies. Broom and broom rape. To spend time in writing a description hereof is altogether needless, it being so generally used by all the good housewives almost through this land to sweep their houses with, and therefore very well known to all sorts of people. The broom rape springs up in many places from the roots of the broom, but more often in fields, as by hedge-sides and on heaths. The stalk, which is about the size of a finger or thumb, grows above 2 feet high, with a show of leaves and many flowers at the top, of a reddish-yellow color. Both the stalks and leaves are similar in color. Place. They grow in many places of this land commonly, and as commonly spoil all the land they grow in. Time. They flower in the summer months, and give their seed before winter. Government and virtues. The juice or decoction of the young branches, or seed, or the powder of the seed taken in drink purges downwards and draws phlegmatic and watery humors from the joints. This helps conditions like dropsy, gout, sciatica, and pains in the hips and joints. It also provokes strong vomits and helps with side pains and swelling of the spleen. Additionally, it cleanses the reins, kidneys, and bladder of the stone, provokes urine abundantly, and prevents the stone from growing again in the body. The continual use of the powder of the leaves and seed cures black jaundice. The distilled water of the flowers is beneficial for the same purposes. It also helps with surfeits and alters the fit of eggs if 3 or 4 ounces of it, mixed with as much of the water of the lesser centauri and a little sugar, are taken before the fit begins. Afterward, the person should be laid down to sweat in their bed. The oil or water drawn from the end of the green sticks when heated in the fire helps with toothache. The juice of young branches made into an ointment with old hog's grease, or the young branches bruised and heated in oil or hog's grease and applied to the sides affected by wind, such as in stitches or the spleen, will ease the pain after 1 or 2 uses. The same, when boiled in oil, is the safest and surest medicine to kill lice in the head or body. It is also an excellent remedy for joint aches and swollen knees, especially those caused by the falling down of humors. The broom rape also has its virtues. The decoction of broom rape in wine is thought to be as effective as broom itself for voiding the stone in the kidneys or bladder and for provoking urine. The juice of broom rape is an excellent remedy for green wounds, old sores, and malignant ulcers. The insolent oil, which has undergone 3 or 4 infusions of the top stalks with flowers strained and cleared, helps cleanse the skin of spots, marks, and freckles caused by the sun or the malignancy of humors. As for the broom and broom rape, Mars owns them, and they are exceedingly prejudicial to the liver, likely due to the antipathy between Jupiter and Mars. Therefore, if the liver is disaffected, avoid administering any of these plants. Buckshorn plantain. Description. When sown from seed, this plant first appears with small, long, narrow, hairy, dark green leaves that resemble grass. These initial leaves are undivided. The following leaves, however, are divided with 3 or 4 gashes along each side, resembling the points of a buck's horn, hence its name. These leaves grow in a star-like pattern around the root. The plant also grows hairy stalks about a hand's breadth high, each bearing a small, long, spiky head, similar to those of the common plantain, with similar blooming and seeds. The root is long and small with various strings attached. Place. Buckshorn plantain grows in sandy grounds, such as in Tot Hill Fields near Westminster and many other locations throughout the land. Time. It flowers and produces seeds during May, June, and July. Its green leaves tend to stay fresh through the winter. Government and virtues. Under the dominion of Saturn, buckshorn plantain is known for its drying and binding qualities. Boiled in wine and consumed, along with some of the leaves applied to the affected area, it serves as an excellent remedy for the bites of vipers or adders. It also helps with stone-related troubles in the kidneys or reins, cooling the affected area and strengthening it. This herb is beneficial for weak stomachs that cannot retain food, as it prevents vomiting. Buck's horn plantain can stop bleeding, whether from the mouth or nose, and it is effective against bloody urine, bloody flux, and diarrhea. The leaves, when bruised and applied to the sides affected by an egg, quickly alleviate symptoms. Similarly, when applied to the wrists, it has the same effect. When boiled in ale or wine and consumed over several mornings and evenings, it helps to prevent the distillation of hot and sharp rheums that affect the eyes from head-related issues. It is also effective in treating various types of sore eyes. Buck's horn. It is called hartshorn, herba stella, herba stellaria, sanguinaria, herb eve, herb ivy, wart tresses, and swine cresses. They have many small and weak straggled branches trailing here and there upon the ground. The leaves are many, small and jagged, not much unlike those of buck's horn plantain, but much smaller and not so hairy. The flowers grow among the leaves in small, rough, whitish clusters. The seeds are smaller and brownish with a bitter taste. They grow in dry, barren, sandy grounds. They flower and seed when the rest of the plantains do. Government and virtues. This is also under the dominion of Saturn. The virtues are held to be the same as buck's horn plantain, and therefore by all authors it is joined with it. The leaves, when bruised and applied to the place, stop bleeding. The herbs, bruised and applied to warts, will make them consume and waste in a short time. Bugle. Besides the name bugle, it is called middle confound, middle comfrey, brown bugle, sicklewort, and herb carpenter, though in Essex, another herb goes by that name. This herb has larger leaves than those of self-heal, but is similar in shape, or rather longer. The upper side is green in some and brownish in others, dented about the edges and somewhat hairy, as is the square stalk, which rises up to about half a yard high. The leaves are set by couples from the middle upwards, and there are smaller, browner leaves below, with the stalk bare between them. The flowers are small, bluish, sometimes ash-colored, resembling those of ground ivy, followed by small, round, blackish seeds. The root consists of many strings and spreads on the ground. The white-flowered bugle is similar in form to the former, but has always green leaves and stalks and white flowers. They grow in woods, copses, and fields throughout England. The white-flowered bugle is less common than the other. They flower from May until July, with seeds ripening in that time. The roots and leaves remain through the winter. Government and virtues. This herb is under the dominion of Venus. If its virtues charm you, keep a syrup of it to take internally, and an ointment or plaster to use externally. The decoction of the leaves and flowers made in wine, and taken, dissolves congealed blood in those bruised by a fall or other injury. It is especially effective for internal wounds, thrusts, or stabs in the body or bowels, and is great in wound drinks. It helps those suffering from liver ailments. This herb is also wonderful for curing all kinds of ulcers, sores, gangrene, and fistulas. If the leaves are bruised or their juice is used for washing or bathing, they heal foul mouth sores, gums, and long-standing ulcers, including in secret parts. Inwardly or outwardly applied, it also helps those with broken bones or dislocated joints. A special ointment made from bugle leaves, scabions, and sanicle, boiled in hog's grease, is excellent for all kinds of body wounds. This herb has cured diseases of Saturn, often experienced by those who drink excessively, causing strange fancies and visions. I've known it cure such afflictions by taking 2 spoonfuls of bugle syrup before bed, especially helpful for those troubled with fear-inducing visions, such as Ephialtes' nightmare. Burnet. Also known as sanguisorbia, pimpinella, bipulo, solbagrella, and others. The common garden burnet is well known and does not need a description. However, there is another wild variety, described as follows. The great wild burnet has winged leaves arising from the roots like the garden burnet, but not as many. Each of these leaves is at least twice as large as the garden variety, and they are nicked around the edges with a grayish color on the underside. The stalks are thicker, rising higher with many leaves set along them, and they have larger heads at the top which are brownish in color. From these heads, small dark purple flowers emerge, larger than the garden variety. The root is black, long, and larger than the garden kind, with almost no scent or taste. It grows frequently in gardens, while the wild kind is found in various counties, especially in Huntingdon and Northamptonshire meadows near London, by Pancras Church, and by a causeway near Paddington. It flowers from the end of June to the beginning of July, with seeds ripening in August. Government and virtues. This herb is under the dominion of the sun and is considered a precious herb, little inferior to betony. Continuous use preserves the body in health and the spirits in vigor. It is a great herb for the heart, liver, and other vital organs. 2 or 3 stalks with leaves placed in a cup of wine, especially claret, can quicken the spirits, refresh the heart, and drive away melancholy. It is helpful in defending the heart from harmful vapors and from the infection of the plague when the juice is taken in some drink and the person is laid to sweat. Burnet has drying and astringent qualities, making it effective for stopping all kinds of blood and humors from flowing, such as bleeding, inward or outward, the bloody flux, and excessive menstruation. It is also useful for choleric belching and vomiting, and is a great wound herb for both internal and external wounds, old ulcers, running cankers, and most sores. It can be used as juice, decoction, powder, distilled water, or ointment. The seed of burnet is also effective in stopping fluxes and drying moist sores, either taken as powder in wine or in stilled water where hot rods of steel have been quenched, or mixed with ointments. The butterbur or pedicitus. Description. This herb rises in February with a thick stalk about a foot high, bearing a few small leaves, or rather pieces. At the top it has a long spiked head with flowers of a blue or deep red color depending on the soil. After about a month, the flowers wither and blow away, and the leaves begin to emerge. Once fully grown, the leaves are large, broad, somewhat thin, almost round, with thick red footstalks over a foot long. The lower part of the leaves is divided into 2 round parts, close to one another, pale green in color, and hairy underneath. The root is long, spreading underground, varying in size from as small as a finger to much larger, blackish on the outside and whitish inside, with a bitter and unpleasant taste. Butterbur grows in low, wet grounds near rivers and watersides. The flowers rise and decay in February and March, before the leaves appear in April. It is under the dominion of the sun, and is a great strengthener of the heart, and clears the vital spirit. The root has long been found effective against the plague and pestilential fevers by provoking sweat. When powdered and taken in wine, it resists the force of poison. The root, taken with Zedoary and Angelica or alone, helps the rising of the mother. The decoction of the root in wine is particularly good for those who wheeze or are short-winded. It also provokes urine, aids women's courses, and kills flat and broad worms in the belly. The powdered root is beneficial in drying up moisture from hard-to-heal sores and removes spots and blemishes on the skin. It would be beneficial for those in need if the rich kept this root preserved to help the poor, for they cannot help themselves. The burdock. Burdocks, also called personata, loppy major, great burdock, and clodbur, are so well known that even children are familiar with them, often picking the burrs to throw or stick onto each other. Burdocks grow abundantly by ditches, watersides, and along highways throughout the land. Venus claims this herb as her own. By using its leaf or seed, you can influence the womb. Apply it to the crown of the head to draw the womb upwards, to the soles of the feet in cases of fits, or to the navel to keep it in place. The burdock leaves are cooling, moderately drying, and have a discussing effect, making them useful for treating old ulcers and sores. A dram of the roots, taken with pine kernels, helps those who spit foul, mattery, and bloody phlegm. The leaves, when applied to areas with shrinking sinews or arteries, provide relief. The juice of the leaves, or the roots themselves, when drunk with old wine, can help with snake bites. The root, beaten with a little salt and applied to the bite, eases pain and helps with bites from mad dogs. The juice of the leaves, mixed with honey, provokes urine and helps remedy bladder pain. The seeds, when drunk in wine for 40 days, are particularly helpful for the sciatica. Burdock leaves, bruised with egg white and applied to burns, ease the pain and help heal the area. A decoction of the leaves, applied to fretting sores or cankers, stops their corrosion, after which the area should be treated with an ointment made from the same liquid, hog's grease, niter, and vinegar boiled together. The roots may be preserved with sugar and consumed fasting or at other times for the same purposes, such as treating consumptions, the stone, and the lask. Burdock seeds are highly recommended for breaking the stone and expelling it through urine, often combined with other seeds and herbs for this purpose. Cabbages and coleworts. Cabbages and coleworts are so well known that a description is unnecessary. Almost anyone familiar with them can describe them from personal knowledge. Place. They are commonly planted in gardens. Time. Their flowers bloom towards the middle or end of July, and the seeds ripen in August. Government and virtues. Cabbages and coleworts, when boiled gently in broth and eaten, help open the body, but the second decoction of them has a binding effect. The juice, when taken with wine, helps those bitten by an adder. The decoction of the flowers can bring down women's courses. When taken with honey, they can recover hoarseness or loss of voice. Eating them frequently while well boiled helps those entering into a consumption. The pulp from the middle ribs of coleworts, boiled in almond milk and made into an electuary with honey, is beneficial for those who are puffy and short-winded. When boiled twice, an old cock boiled in the broth helps with liver and spleen pains, obstructions, and the stone in the kidneys. The juice, when boiled with honey and dropped into the corner of the eyes, can clear the sight by consuming any cloud or film that might dim it. It also helps with cankers in the eyes. Cabbages are often eaten before meals to prevent surfeiting or to sober someone up after drinking too much wine. There is said to be an antipathy between the vine and the colewort, so that the vine will die where coleworts grow. The decoction of coleworts eases pain and swelling in sores, gouty legs, and knees, especially when warm. It is also effective for old, filthy sores and small scabs, pus, and wheals that break out in the skin. The ashes of colewort stalks mixed with old hog's grease can be applied to relieve pain in the sides, especially from long-term conditions or those caused by melancholy and wind-related humors. Chrysippus, the ancient philosopher, wrote extensively about their virtues, attributing them to nearly every part of the body and every type of disease. Honest old Cato is said to have used no other form of medicine. Cabbages are known to be extremely windy, whether used as food or medicine, and colewort flowers are somewhat more tolerable and healthier. The moon governs this herb. The sea coleworts. Description. This plant has long, broad, thick, wrinkled leaves, slightly crumpled at the edges, and grows each on a thick footstalk, very brittle, with a grayish-green color. From among these leaves rises a strong, thick stalk, about 2 feet high, with some leaves along the way. At the top, it branches out extensively, and on every branch stands a large cluster of pale whitish flowers, each consisting of 4 petals. The root is somewhat large, shooting many branches underground, and the plant keeps its leaves green throughout the winter. Place. Sea coleworts grow along the seacoasts, particularly on the shores of Kent and Essex, such as at Lydd in Kent, Colchester in Essex, and various other places in other counties. Time. They flower and seed around the same time as other types of coleworts. Government and virtues. The moon governs these plants. The broth, or first decoction of the sea colewort, with its sharp, nitrous, and bitter qualities, opens the belly and purges the body. It cleanses and digests more powerfully than other types of colewort. The seed, when bruised and drunk, is effective in killing worms. The leaves, or their juice, when applied to sores or ulcers, help cleanse, heal, and dissolve swellings, as well as reduce inflammation. Calamint, or mountain mint. This small herb typically doesn't rise above a foot in height, with square, hairy, and woody stalks. It has 2 small, hoary leaves set at a joint, similar in size to marjoram. The leaves are slightly dented around the edges and have a very strong, pungent scent, as does the whole plant. The flowers grow along the stalk from the middle upwards, small and gaping like those of mints, and are pale bluish in color. After flowering, small round blackish seeds appear. The root is small and woody with several small strings spreading underground, and it lives for many years. Place: Calamint grows in heaths, uplands, and dry grounds, found in many places throughout the land. Time: it flowers in July and its seeds ripen shortly after. Government and virtues: under the dominion of Mercury, calamint is a strong herb, especially useful for afflictions of the brain. The decoction of the herb, when drunk, brings down women's courses and stimulates urine. It is helpful for those suffering from hernias, convulsions, cramps, shortness of breath, choleric pains, and stomach issues. It also aids in treating yellow jaundice and halts vomiting when taken with wine. A mixture with salt and honey kills worms in the body. Calamint is effective for leprosy, whether taken inwardly with whey or applied outwardly as the green herb. It can prevent conception in women, and when burned or scattered in a room, it repels venomous serpents. It also reduces black and blue marks on the face and helps turn dark scars to a healthier color when applied with wine. When used on the hucklebone, it can reduce the pain from sciatica over time. The juice of the plant, when dropped into the ears, kills earworms. A decoction of the leaves in wine promotes sweating and clears liver and spleen obstructions. For those suffering from a tertian ague, taking the decoction after purging helps eliminate the cold fits. It also helps with overproduction of bile, old coughs, shortness of breath, cold bowel issues, and spleen problems. Both the powder known as diacaluminthes and the compound syrup of calamint are most effective for these purposes. Women should be cautious with its use, as it has a strong effect on feminine health. Chamomile. Chamomile is so well known everywhere that it is unnecessary to describe it further. The following are its virtues. A decoction of chamomile, when drank, alleviates pains and stitches in the side. The flowers, when beaten and made into balls with gill, help to drive away all types of agues. Anoint the affected area with the oil from the flowers, from the crown of the head to the sole of the foot, and then have the person sweat in bed. This is a remedy described by Nekessor, an Egyptian physician. It is effective for all types of agues, whether caused by phlegm, melancholy, or inflammation of the bowels, and is particularly beneficial for the liver and spleen. A bath made with a decoction of chamomile relieves weariness, eases pains, comforts overstrained sinews, and reduces swelling. It also helps to warm parts of the body that need it, aids digestion, and dissolves anything requiring dissolution. It eases colic and stone pains, as well as belly aches, and gently provokes urine. Boiling the flowers in posset drink induces sweating, expels cold, and alleviates aches. It is an excellent remedy for menstrual issues. A syrup made from the juice of chamomile and flowers in white wine helps with jaundice and dropsy. The flowers boiled in lye are used to wash the head and refresh both the head and brain. The oil made from the flowers is highly effective against hard swellings, joint pains, cramps, and any body aches. When used in clysters, it helps to relieve wind and belly pains. Nekessor, the Egyptian physician, said that chamomile was dedicated to the sun because of its effectiveness in curing agues. Becanus, Bina, and Lobel recommend syrup made from the juice and sugar for the spleen. Chamomile is also excellent for breaking up stones. It can be taken in syrup or decoction, or the juice can be injected into the bladder with a syringe. It is my belief that the salt of chamomile, half a dram taken in the morning with a little white or Rhenish wine, is the best method. Its power to dissolve stones is evident in the case where a stone, once removed from a man's body, was wrapped in chamomile and dissolved over time. Water caltrops. Also known as Tribulus aquaticus, Tribulus laccosaurus, Tribulus marinus, caltrops, salagos, water nuts, and water chestnuts. Description. The larger type of water caltrop is rare, but two smaller varieties are commonly found. The first has a long, creeping, jointed root that sends forth tufts at each joint. From these joints, long, flat, slender, knotted stalks rise up to the water's surface, branching into multiple parts. Each branch carries two thin leaves, about 2 inches long and half an inch wide, almost transparent and looking torn at the edges. The flowers are long, thick, and whitish, grouped like a bunch of grapes. Once the flowers have gone, sharp-pointed grains form, each containing a small white kernel. The second variety is quite similar but thrives in cleaner water. Its stalks are round instead of flat, and its leaves are shorter but more pointed. Government and virtues. Water caltrops are under the dominion of the moon. When made into a poultice, they are excellent for treating hot inflammations, swellings, cankers, and sore mouths or throats. The decoction cleanses and strengthens the neck and throat, and it's beneficial for swellings, especially those associated with the so-called almonds of the ears. They are highly effective for the rankness of the gums and serve as a safe remedy for the king's evil. Dried water. Caltrop nuts are particularly good for the stone and gravel. Additionally, these herbs resist poison and the bites of venomous creatures. Campion wild. The wild white campion has many long, somewhat broad, dark green leaves lying flat on the ground, with several ribs resembling plantain but somewhat hairier and broader. The hairy stalk rises from the middle of the leaves, reaching 3 or 4 feet high, sometimes taller. Along the stalk, there are several large white joints and 2 similar leaves at each joint, with branches at several points. At the tips of these branches, white flowers bloom, consisting of 5 broad pointed petals, each cut to the middle, making them appear as 2. The flowers smell somewhat sweet and are encased in large, green, striped, hairy husks. The seeds are small and grayish, contained in hard heads that develop after the flowers. The root is white, long, and spreads out with various smaller roots. The red wild campion grows similarly, with leaves that are not as distinctly ribbed. These leaves are slightly shorter, rounder, and woollier to the touch. The flowers are the same size, but appear in a pale or bright red color, with more finely cut petals, making them look more numerous than the white variety. The seeds and roots are similar, and the roots of both kinds endure for many years. They are commonly found in fields, hedgerows, and ditches throughout the land. They flower in the summer, with some varieties blooming earlier and others lasting longer. Wild campion is under the dominion of Saturn. The decoction of either the white or red variety made in wine and drunk can help stop internal bleeding. Applied externally, it also aids in stopping bleeding. It is useful for expelling urine, relieving gravel and stones in the kidneys and reins. 2 drams of the seed, when taken in wine, help purge the body of choleric humors and are effective for treating stings from scorpions or other venomous creatures, potentially even aiding in the plague. Wild campion is also beneficial in treating old sores, ulcers, cankers, and fistulas, as it helps cleanse and warm the affected areas, consuming excess moisture and correcting the putrefaction of harmful humors. Carduus benedictus. Carduus benedictus, also known as blessed thistle or holy thistle, is a plant well known for its medicinal properties. I will spare the description as it is familiar to most. It flowers in August with seeds ripening shortly after. This herb is ruled by Mars under the sign of Aries. Throughout the book, you'll notice how Mars' influence plays a role in the herb's properties. Carduus benedictus helps with symptoms like dizziness and vertigo, as Aries is in the house of Mars. It's an excellent remedy for yellow jaundice and gall-related issues, as Mars governs choler. The herb also strengthens the attractive faculties of the body and purifies the blood, again in line with Mars' influence. Drinking its decoction regularly can help with conditions like red faces, tetters, and ringworm, all linked to Mars. The herb is also beneficial for ailments like the plague, boils, the itch, and venomous bites, which fall under Mars' domain. Additionally, it helps cure the French pox by antipathy to other planets and strengthens memory and cures deafness through antipathy to Venus and Saturn, respectively. It also aids in treating quartan agues and diseases of melancholy or adust choler, with benefits due to Mars' exaltation in Capricorn. Furthermore, Carduus benedictus promotes urine flow, addressing issues typically caused by Mars or the Moon. Carrots. Garden carrots are so well known that they require no further description. However, as the wild kind has greater medicinal value, I will describe the wild carrot briefly. The wild carrot resembles the garden variety, but has rougher and whiter leaves and stalks. The stalks bear large tufts of white flowers, each with a deep purple spot in the middle. As the seed ripens, the flowers contract, and the middle becomes hollow, making the umbel look like a bird's nest. The root is small, long, and hard, with a sharp and strong taste, unsuitable for eating. Wild carrots grow abundantly along field sides and in uncultivated places throughout the land. They flower and seed in late summer. Wild carrots belong to Mercury, and due to their influence, they are known to relieve wind, reduce side stitches, promote urine and menstruation, and help expel the stone. The seed of the wild carrot shares these properties and is effective for treating dropsy, belly swelling from wind, colic, kidney stones, and rising of the mother. When taken in wine or boiled in wine, it is also helpful for conception. The leaves, when applied with honey, cleanse running sores and ulcers. The seeds of wild carrots are more effective than the roots for these purposes. Though Galen praised garden carrots for relieving wind, experience shows that the roots often cause it, while the seeds are more effective in expelling wind and improving digestion. Caraway. Caraway is primarily cultivated for its seeds. It has several stalks with finely cut leaves lying on the ground, resembling carrot leaves but not as bushy. The taste of the leaves is mildly sharp. A square stalk rises from the ground, not as tall as the carrot, with smaller and finer leaves at the joints. At the top of the stalk are small open tufts or umbels of white flowers, which turn into small blackish seeds that are smaller than aniseed and have a hotter, sharper taste. The root is whitish, small, and long, similar to a parsnip but with more wrinkled bark and a stronger, sharper taste. It remains after the seed has been harvested. Place. Caraway is usually sown in gardens. Time. The flowers bloom in June and July, with the seeds ripening shortly after. Government and virtues. Caraway is a mercurial plant. The seeds have a moderately sharp quality, which helps relieve wind and promotes urine flow. The herb itself also has these properties. The root, similar to parsnip, is more beneficial as food. It is pleasant, comforting to the stomach, and aids digestion. The seed helps with cold conditions in the head, stomach, and bowels, and can also aid vision. The seed powder, when used in a poultice, is effective for bruises, helping to fade black and blue marks. A poultice made from the herb, or the herb with some seed bruised and fried, can be applied to the lower belly to relieve wind colic. The roots, when eaten like parsnips, are excellent for strengthening the stomach, especially in the elderly. They don't need to be eaten in large quantities. Caraway is a good addition to any garden. Caraway comfits, dipped once in sugar and eaten with meals, is an excellent remedy for wind-related issues. Taking half a spoonful in the morning on an empty stomach and after each meal is highly effective. Celandine. Description. Celandine has several tender, round, whitish-green stalks with larger joints resembling knees. These joints are brittle and easy to break. From these joints grow branches with large, tender, broad leaves that are divided into many parts. The leaves are a dark bluish-green color on top and pale underneath, full of yellow sap when broken. The flowers have 4 petals, and after flowering, small, long pods with blackish seeds follow. The root is thick at the head, with long, small roots, reddish on the outside and yellow within, filled with yellow sap. Place. It grows in many places by old walls, hedges, and waysides, often in untilled areas. Once planted in a garden, it will remain, especially in shady spots. Time. It flowers throughout the summer and the seeds ripen in the meantime. Government and virtues. Celandine is governed by the sun. It is an excellent remedy for sore eyes, and when gathered under the right astrological conditions, with the sun in Leo and moon in Aries, it can be made into oil or ointment. Many cases of desperate sore eyes have been healed using this herb, sometimes facilitating the work of an eye surgeon. It is known to be a powerful medicine for liver obstructions and jaundice, and it is also useful for dropsy, the itch, and old sores. The juice, when taken on an empty stomach, is helpful in treating the plague. The distilled water, combined with sugar and treacle, can also have a similar effect, especially when the person sweats afterward. Celandine's juice, when dropped into the eyes, clears them of films and cloudiness, though it's best diluted with breast milk. It also heals old, running ulcers and sores, and is useful for ringworm, tetters, and warts. The herb, when used with oil of chamomile and applied to the navel, helps with abdominal pain, cramping, and uterine issues. For dental problems, the juice or decoction gargled can ease toothache, and dried root powder applied to aching teeth helps them fall out. The juice mixed with brimstone powder is not only good for treating the itch, but also removes skin discoloration. If any irritation occurs, it can be alleviated with vinegar. Celandine has proven benefits and can be more effective than other common eye treatments. The lesser celandine, also known as pilewort and fogwort. Description: this plant, often called lesser celandine or pilewort, spreads many round pale green leaves on weak trailing branches that lie flat on the ground. The leaves are smooth, shiny, and occasionally marked with black spots. Each leaf stands on a long footstalk. Small yellow flowers consisting of 9 or 10 narrow petals rise among the leaves. The seeds resemble kernels and are slightly longer than typical seeds, with fibers at the end. Place: it grows primarily in moist corners of fields and near watersides, but can also thrive in drier, slightly shady ground. Time: it flowers early in the year, around March or April, and fades by May, not appearing again until it sprouts in the following season. Government and virtues. This herb is under the dominion of Mars, and its virtues align with the ancient belief that a plant's appearance indicates its use. The root of this plant resembles the disease it treats, hemorrhoids. The decoction made from its leaves and roots is highly effective for treating piles and hemorrhoids, as well as for reducing hard swellings like the king's evil, scrofula, and other tumorous growths. As a remedy, pilewort can be made into an oil, ointment, or plaster to treat both hemorrhoids and scrofula. Carrying the herb close to the skin has also been found to help treat these conditions, even if it doesn't directly touch the affected area. In personal experience, it has been used to cure the king's evil by drawing out pus and healing the wound without leaving a scar in a week's time. The ordinary small centauri. Description: this herb typically grows with a single round, somewhat crusted stalk, about a foot tall or slightly more. It branches at the top into several sprigs, with some branches also emerging from the joints below. The flowers, clustered at the top in an umbel, are pale red with a touch of carnation color. They consist of 5 or sometimes 6 small leaves, resembling those of St. John's wort, opening during the day and closing at night. After flowering, small seeds and husks, similar to wheat, appear. The leaves are small and somewhat round, and the root is small, hard, and perishes annually. The whole plant has a strong bitter taste. There is another variety that resembles the first, but bears white flowers. Place: commonly found in fields, pastures, and woods, though the white-flowered version is less frequent. Time: it flowers in July and seeds within a month afterward. Government and virtues. Under the dominion of the sun, this herb's flowers open and close with the sun's movement. When boiled and consumed, it purges choleric and gross humors, aids the sciatica, and opens obstructions in the liver, gall, and spleen. It helps alleviate jaundice and the pains in the sides or the hardness of the spleen. Used externally, it aids in agues. It is beneficial for dropsy and green sickness, commonly used in powdered form by the Italians for this purpose. It kills intestinal worms, as demonstrated by experience. The decoction of the tops, leaves, and flowers is useful for colic and bringing down women's courses. It helps prevent miscarriages, eases pains in the mother, and is effective for joint pains like gout, cramps, or convulsions. A dram of powder taken in wine is a powerful remedy for the bite and poison of an adder. The herb's juice, combined with honey, clears dimness, mists, and clouds from the eyes. The herb is excellent for both fresh wounds and chronic ulcers, as it helps close up fresh wounds and cleanses old ones, even if they are deep or fistulous. The decoction dropped into the ears clears worms and helps with foul ulcers and spreading scabs on the head. It also removes freckles, spots, and marks on the skin. It is safe to use for various conditions, especially when used for internal diseases. While it's highly beneficial, it may not be the most palatable. Additionally, another variety of small centauri with yellow flowers is similar, though its leaves are larger, darker green, and the stalk runs through the middle of them, like the herb thorawan. All varieties of centauri are under the sun's influence. For blood diseases, use the red centauri, for choleric issues, the yellow, and for phlegm or water-related issues, the white variety is most effective. The cherry tree. We will continue in the next video. Like, subscribe, and share to revive our ancestors' knowledge. See you in the next episode.